Chapter 1228. While the world was in an uproar over the revival of spirit qi, in the depths of Tianqing school, Jiang Tian had successfully formed the Thunder Dragon divine body and was on the verge of forming the sixth fake elixir. At this time Jiang Tian was sitting in the void with his eyes closed like an old monk. The 100-meter-long lightning around him was like a gentle silk ribbon, but there was no sign of violence, making him look like the god of thunder. At this time he controlled the lightning, which was one of the most violent energies in the world. In his energy center, there was a Thunder Dragon divine body on the ground. It was made up of the supreme essence of lightning and had a pair of wind and thunder wings on its back. Motherfucker, there's no justice in this world. He actually condensed the body of the lightning slaughter god and even grew out small wings. This is too heaven-defying. I heard from my dead parents that out of 10,000 Thunder Manas, there might not even be one that can evolve into a divine body. In Jiang Tian's mind, the divine soul of the Thunder Dragon looked at the changes outside and gritted its teeth with jealousy. The Thunder Dragon divine body was not an ordinary Thunder Dragon divine body, but a divine body evolved from an innate divine beast like the Thunder Dragon. This divine body had not yet reached the phenomenal level and was still in a virtual state. But it had already formed the wind and thunder wings, which could control the power of space and resist space fragments. Could shrink the ground to an inch and travel 1,000 miles in one step. The Thunder Dragon divine body is too difficult to cultivate. It belongs to the most violent type of energy. I'm only at the initial level now. I have to swallow all the Thunder Dragon pills to enrich the divine body. It would be best if I could form a fake elixir. Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with awe as he started to refine the Thunder Dragon divine body bit by bit. Swallow. Jiang Tian swallowed the Thunder Dragon pills one by one. They instantly turned into surging thunder energy and surged into his limbs and bones. Jiang Tian's energy center was shaking violently. Swallow the Thunder Dragon pills? Not slowly refining them. You're unbelievable. You're awesome. I'm scared of you. Lei Meng was so scared that he screamed, trembled, and complained. Several days later, outside Jiang Tian's cultivation room, Ying Su bowed his head respectfully to Zhao Xueqing and asked anxiously, "What's the matter? Senior Taichu, when will you come out of seclusion?" His eyes were filled with despair. It had only been a few days since the Qin dynasty declared war, but in these few days, the outside world had undergone earth-shaking changes. The White Dragon Mountain's Dragon Lake led the demons of the world out of the mountain and appeared in the city. They killed people and plundered their goods, flaunting their prowess. The Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang's 100 Ghosts Night Parade walked the human world and stirred up trouble. It was only when Yu Jingtian of the Pre-Qin dynasty spoke up that the demonic spirits and ghost cultivators reined in their forces and no longer acted on a large scale. The famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty could summon the wind and summon the rain. Every day they would attack Jiang Tian's various Dao temples in Wuxia, defeating the disciples guarding them. In these few days they had already swept through the Shinnong ancient Wudong Dianzong and Tianshan Taoist sect like a violent storm. Only the Amei Taoist sect was left. However, it seemed that it would be difficult for them to support the sect alone. Currently, the 4 nascent soul formation elders had not made a move. They were guarding Sidoni's main Dao temple and protecting Jiang Tian. Basically, all the Dao temples of the Tianqing school in Wuxia were guarded by figures at the foundation stage like Shen Mange. It was obvious that it was difficult for them to deal with the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty. Shen Mange, who was guarding the Shinnong school, was already severely injured. In fact, although Situ Shao and Yi Tianren had already reached the fake Dan stage and arrived in Wuxia, Shen Mange and Zhao Yuankuan treated this crisis as a rare opportunity to hone themselves. They did not allow the 2 guardians to make a move. Thus, on the surface, it looked like the major Dao temples of the Tianqing school were retreating step by step. They were not a match for them. Every day, experts or organizations announced that they had joined the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty. The entire cultivation world of Wuxia was in chaos. The world's spirit qi recovery plan was basically in a state of stagnation. Now Yu Jingtian was known as the most powerful person under the Immortal Trap formation. He was even more famous than Jiang Tian was back then. Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school had not succeeded in killing a single person from the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty. They had become the biggest joke in the world. Kong Teichu is known as the master of the 3 realms. He must be bluffing. Now that his Tao temple has been destroyed and his disciples are seriously injured, he doesn't dare to come out. What a coward. Kong Teichu is strong, but he can't resist the power of the immortal trap formation. His cultivation is stuck at the 3rd level of the foundation stage. He can't compare with the famous sects of the Preqin dynasty. That's right. The Preqin dynasty cultivators are the orthodox cultivators. Kong Teichu is a heretical cultivator. They are too far apart. Isn't Kong Teichu awesome? He said he could recover the world's spirit qi and was confident that he could suppress the monsters and beasts after the great changes in the world. But now that demons and ghost cultivators have appeared, why doesn't he dare to suppress them? What a boast. Fortunately, he hasn't succeeded in recovering the world's spirit qi. If he did, then wouldn't mankind be doomed? From the heads of state and powerful cultivators to the leaders of financial groups and cultural celebrities, to the lowly peddlers and peddlers, all of them were disappointed in Zhang Tian. Some sighed regretfully while others shook their heads mockingly. Yingsu used to regard Zhang Tian as a target to catch up with and was jealous of Zhang Tian. But at the critical moment he stood on Zhang Tian's side. In fact, he had a good foundation. Back then he took the initiative to gather the reclusive royalty to resist the invasion of the Holy See and the Brahmin. But because he disrupted Zhang Tian's plan and didn't teach Zhang Tian a lesson, there was a gap and conflict. Little doll, don't be noisy. Master is in seclusion to break through. We can't disturb him. Violators will be killed without mercy. Faced with Yingsu's request, Lotus Old Relai's face was ferocious as he berated loudly. But if this goes on, Wuxia will really be in chaos. Alright, you guys continue with your seclusion. I'll go and fight with them. Yingsu's eyes were filled with resentment and disappointment as he turned to leave. Kong Teichu, you keep saying that you have the ability to deal with the changes after the recovery of the world spirit qi. But now, the world spirit qi hasn't recovered yet, and the world hasn't changed yet, but it's already in chaos. Just as Yingsu walked 5 to 6 meters away, the sky above Tianqing School formed a sea of lightning with a radius of hundreds of miles. Thunderbolts as thick as buckets swam abruptly like silver pythons, pouring into the depths of the sect. Will Godfather be okay? Outside, little Arthur asked nervously. He had seen thunder divine powers before. Zhang Qianlei used to show off in front of little Arthur by condensing thunderbolts. But at this moment, compared to Zhang Tian's thunder divine power, little Arthur felt that Zhang Qianlei's thunderbolts were like toys, not worth mentioning. Is this the Taichu true god? The great Taichu. Please save us. At this moment not only was he shocked, but the entire northern region of Sidoni witnessed this shocking scene. Tens of millions of people knelt down as if they were seeing a god. Thousands of thunderbolts. Looks like Master's thunder slaughter divine body has succeeded. Hey, this cultivation speed is so fast that even the overlords of the ruins of deity have to admit defeat. True Dragon Ancestor and the other 3 were filled with admiration and amazement. They could not help but sigh in admiration and envy. The Thunder Slaughter divine body was rumored to be the most powerful thunder divine body in the universe. Even if a Thunder Slaughter had a connate bloodline and connate divine powers, it would take a long time to cultivate it. However, Zhang Tian only used a young Thunder Centipede's fake core and the Thunder Accumulation Pill to condense it in just half a month. This was simply heaven-defying to the extreme. Zhao Xueqing's face also showed a trace of pride. At this time, Zhang Tian had refined all the Thunder Accumulation Pills and the Thunder Slaughter divine body in Zhang Tian's Dantian had finally become solid. At this time, the Thunder Slaughter divine body wasn't made of flesh and blood at all. It was almost made of pure thunder energy. It was crystal clear and dazzling with rolling thunder. And the Thunder Slaughter divine body also formed a fake core in the shape of a Thunder Slaughter. Every inch of Zhang Tian's bones, meridians and even cells contained a huge amount of thunder energy and were trembling violently. He'd even formed a fake core in Thunderbolt's divine body. Once each ball of lightning energy exploded, it would be a huge blast of lightning. When unleashed, it could blow up mountains and flatten the ground. Its power was comparable to that of a nuclear bomb. And yet, there were at least a few hundred balls of thunder energy in Zhang Tian's body right then. If Zhang Tian's divine body exploded, it would be as powerful as the explosion of a few hundred nuclear weapons. If a thunderbolt exploded, it could easily turn a golden core into ashes and even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to withstand it. If Jiang Tian was facing true dragon ancestral patriarch and the other three nascent soul overlords, he wouldn't need to use the cauldron of creation to deal with them. He only needed to use the thunder slaughter divine body to suppress them. Jiang Tian had the power of 6 fake cores right then, and they were all divine-grade fake cores from his divine body, which was even more powerful than a sacred-grade or celestial-grade fake core. Even the powerful sects and imperishable heritages in the central galaxy would have to admit defeat when they saw him. The thunder slaughter divine body has finally reached phenomenal success. Along with a shout, the cultivation room suddenly exploded. The 1,000-meter-long Lei Zhu's divine body, which was entirely made of lightning, was forcefully blown apart. Thousands of meters of lightning bolts swallowed and spat out, shooting straight into the void. Right then Jiang Tian was surrounded by thunderbolts. He was extremely dazzling and there were several meters of thunderbolts shooting out from his eyes. Everyone closed their eyes and didn't dare to look at the dazzling thunderbolts. Did he break through? How frightening is his power? Yingsu halted her steps, her face filled with shock. As the leader of the younger generation of the reclusive royalty, he had the power of an earth-level deity, but he felt that Jiang Tian's power was too terrifying and he couldn't shake it at all. But then he murmured worriedly, "Why isn't there a deity entrapment tribulation? Or is this the deity entrapment tribulation?" In fact, at this moment, there was indeed a suppressive force suddenly descending from the heavens and earth. Yingsu suddenly felt a chilling killing intent appear between the heavens and earth, as if he was being stared at by a primordial vicious beast, causing his heart to palpitate. The deity entrapment tribulation. But Master should be able to dodge it with the art of deceiving the heavens and the thick earth god-suppressing chains. Not only him, even the 4 nascent soul cultivators and Zhou Xian looked worried and frowned as they looked at the sky. Chapter 1229. Ever since Jiang Tian reached the Foundation establishment stage on the Sword Tomb Island, all of his breakthroughs had taken place in other dimensions. Today was the first time he had broken through on Earth after reaching the Foundation establishment stage, so it was bound to disturb the immortal trap array. As expected, Jiang Tian's monstrous aura suddenly shrank and quickly turned into an ordinary person with black hair and black eyes. The thunder slaughter divine body and the sea of thunder also disappeared in seconds, returning to a cloudless and calm state. The pressure and killing intent, which seemed to have consciousness, hovered in confusion for a while and then retreated unwillingly. Brilliant! The 4 nascent soul stage cultivators were shocked. Not to mention that Jiang Tian was powerful with such a brilliant technique. Even if Jiang Tian was just an ordinary person, he could still succeed in a sneak attack. Is he still a human? Although Jiang Tian had returned to the appearance of an ordinary person, Yingsu's throat was dry when he recalled the power of Jiang Tian's thunder slaughter divine body. He felt suffocated and had difficulty breathing. Congratulations, my lord, for breaking through again and condensing the 6th divine grade false core and building the 6th divine body. Now it seems that it's only a matter of time before you build the strongest chaotic divine body in the universe. The 4 nascent soul stage cultivators stepped forward and bowed respectfully on the ground, flattering him as if they were meeting a real god. Divine grade false core. Divine body. Chaotic divine body. At the side, Yingsu listened in a daze, but at the same time he was filled with respect. He had never heard of these words before, but he felt that they were very powerful. Get up. Jiang Tian smiled and nodded slightly, not taking it to heart. Then he stepped forward and held Qing'er's hand. He carefully sensed the physical condition of her and her gluttonous daughter and said, "You and your child have recovered well. I'll help you adjust your meridians and nourish your qi and blood. It'll be even better. I'll write a prescription and give it to the alchemy room, or I'll make it myself." Then he took out a pen and paper and wrote on it. He was very attentive and didn't look at the disciples who were waiting for him. "Jiang Tian, there are some changes in the situation outside. We have to deal with it immediately." Zhou Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was both touched and helpless. "In this world, nothing is more important than my wife and children." Jiang Tian stared intently as he wrote and drew. He cultivated a spiritual herb and optimized an alchemy process. Shen Mange is injured. Beside them, Yingsu was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. "Kong Teichu, what kind of situation is this? Is the fire burning your eyebrows? Why are you still so calm?" "No one died." Jiang Tian's words made Su completely speechless. In fact, Jiang Tian was quite confident in his disciples. Against the famous preaching clans they could at least survive. As for winning or losing, Jiang Tian had already become indifferent to fame and glory. Compared to victory or defeat, it was more important to sharpen the disciples. It wasn't until he personally went to the alchemy room that Jiang Tian felt relieved. He turned around and asked, "How's the situation outside? Tell me." Everyone hurriedly started talking at once, reporting the situation outside. Su also reported the situation of the famous preaching clans in detail. It turns out that the famous preaching clans also control the spiritual qi recovery seeds. This information is very valuable. Su, you have forsaken the darkness for the light. From now on we will be comrades and comrades. After listening to Su, Jiang Tian nodded with a smile and expressed his appreciation and welcome for Su's arrival. "I dare not. You are my senior." In front of Jiang Tian, Su couldn't be arrogant at all. He cupped his fists respectfully. Because of the power of Jiang Tian's lightning slaughter divine body, he knew that all the information Jiang Tian announced was true. Although he was a genius of reclusive royalty, Jiang Tian had already swept through 3 worlds. Compared to him he was nothing. It was as if he had just bought a grocery cart that cost tens of thousands of yuan, while Jiang Tian had already boarded a private plane. They were not at the same level at all. Suddenly Su's spirit was blessed. He bowed his head and said generously, full of expectation, "I am willing to enter Tianqing School and follow Senior Tai Chu to fight on the battlefield, conquer the dimensional world and the sea of stars." "Good. But you don't have to kneel down. You don't have to do the ceremony." Jiang Tian gladly agreed without the slightest hesitation. After that he stretched out his hands and helped Xianxia up. "Senior Tai Chu, you are willing to accept me?" Su was stunned and couldn't believe it. First of all, he had seen the arrogance of the famous preaching sections. Their cultivation was only at the fake core level, but they were already arrogant and regarded him as an ant. Right now Jiang Tian had 6 divine-grade fake pellets, more than just a bit higher than them. His sect's mystic arts were not inferior to preaching's famed sects in the slightest. However, he accepted all kinds of talents and treated them with respect. Secondly, he had interfered with Tianqing School's plan in the Battle of Lansong River. He had also played tricks to squeeze out the original long formation of 4 spiritual generals and 8. Although he was hesitant and didn't do it himself, he was still on Zhou Xian's side after all. But now he was repaying evil with good. "You're not a bad person. Why should I refuse you when you want to protect the country and the people? Furthermore, you did guard my spirit guiding array." "Wait a minute." Jiang Tian smiled. "From now on you will be the top disciple of the 2nd generation. Ancestor Zhenlong will teach you cultivation in the future." Clatter. Tears instantly rolled down Su's cheeks. His tall body trembled non-stop. He kowtowed again and said in a trembling voice, "Senior Tai Chu, my life is yours from now on. I will bleed to the last drop of my blood for Tianqing School." At this moment he really felt that Jiang Tian's heart was wider than the universe. The famous preaching sects were definitely not comparable to him. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, and then a trace of coldness appeared on his face. His eyes were as cold as knives. "Alas, Jiang Tian said that I was fierce and my hands were stained with blood. Those were just words to confuse the people. The main reason is that they want to control Earth because I threaten their position. But these famous preaching sects still talk about family background and bloodline. It's ridiculous. Didn't they know that more than 2,000 years ago, there were people who said that nobles, generals and officials were superior? Power has always been in the hands of the most people. Cultivators also rose from among the mortals. To put it bluntly, those demons from Dragon Lake and ghost cultivators from Mount Mang are also their people. They are playing with each other to show their authority. I was very kind and merciful at first. I wanted to form a mythical alliance and invite the knowledgeable people and heroes in the world to fight for the fate of Earth and the civilization of mankind. But these clowns are shameless and want to be my enemy. That's fine too. Then I'll leave the mountain for once. I'll sweep away all the ghosts and snakes and crush them into powder." The next moment, Jiang Tian rose into the air and turned into a bright thunderbolt that pierced through the sky and shot into the distance. His target was Wuxia. "Scope. Our Lord has taken action personally. There's no need for us to be polite. Let's go." The four nascent soul cultivators looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent and bloodthirsty light. Mount Mang. The Ghost King of Hejian was drinking and talking with Yama Wang of Fengdu, the Heavenly Corpse Cultivator, Nia Xiaoqian of Lanrua Temple and other ghost lords and ghost generals. Kong Teichu is just a fool. He thinks I'm an idiot and wants me to join his mythical alliance and be controlled by him. Lu Shang, the king of Hejian, sipped his wine and sneered proudly. We are ghost soldiers, ghost generals and heavenly corpse cultivators. We don't absorb his spiritual qi. How dare he say that? Now that we've killed so many people, why doesn't he dare to come out? When he recovers his spiritual qi, the world will change and the spiritual qi will be released. But there will also be smoke and evil spirits everywhere. Evil beasts will run rampant and countless people will die. It will be very beneficial for us. It can even help us become ghost immortals. Beneath him, the Yama king of Fengdu was also a ghost emperor, but he was only slightly weaker than him. I think we'd better show our support. Although Yu Jingtian is very powerful now, Kong Teichu hasn't shown his trump card yet. Situ Shao and Yi Tianren haven't even done anything yet. Yama Wang, you don't know what Kong Teichu is talking about. Ghost King Mang Mountain sneered. We joined the mythical alliance for more than just a title. We still have to work. We have to listen to the orders of his soul hall and help him collect the souls of the dead. That way he can use a secret art to revive the dead. When the time comes, you won't be able to eat the souls of the dead. You want to become a ghost immortal? Dream on. You'll be lucky if you don't starve to death. The female ghost from Lanrua Temple Nia Xiaoqian was dressed in white. She had the face of a flower and the face of the moon. Her beauty was unparalleled. Then we won't do it. If he forces us, we'll go around killing souls. Can he protect so many people in the world? Why? He wants us to work for him. He's just a kid. He doesn't know what's good for him. Many zombies, yikshaws, messengers, Oxhead and Horseface were drunk. They slammed the table and shouted angrily, denouncing Jiang Tian. Ghost King Hejian, I heard that you want to be the leader of the mythical alliance. Please come out. At this time a cold voice was heard. You son of a bitch. How dare you make trouble in front of my palace? Do you think I, Ghost King Mang Mountain, am a pushover? Lu Shang, the Ghost King of Hejian, was furious. He slammed the table and stood up, leading the ghost soldiers, generals, zombies and yikshaws to the outside of the tomb. You're Kong Teichu? When Lu Shang came out of the door, he saw a handsome man in a white robe standing in the air. Beside him, Adept Redleaf was hugging a kitten. He was bowing in a servile manner. Only Kong Teichu could be treated like this by perfected cultivator Hongya. There were a few cameras in the distance. Apparently, the media knew that Jiang Tian would appear. That's me. Jiang Tian's face was calm. He looked down at him as if he was looking at an ant and said coldly, I heard that you refused to join the mythical alliance? I'll give you 1 minute to think about it. Surrender to me or die. Ghost King Mang Mountain was furious when he heard that. He said mockingly, Kong Teichu, I've heard of you. You're the supreme ruler of the 3 realms. But I won't lie to you. I also have a way to escape the restrictions of the deity trap. I've even killed a golden core cultivator of the Preaching dynasty. You're just a level 3 foundation establishment cultivator. Since you're here, take the opportunity to announce to the world that I'll be the leader of the mythical alliance. I'll be in charge of the recovery of spiritual qi. In the future, I, Ghost King Mang Mountain, will be the supreme ruler of this world. At this time, the flying yikshaw who had been causing trouble everywhere roared, Kong Teichu, how dare you be so arrogant in front of the Ghost King? Kneel down. Smack. Jiang Tian raised his hand and slapped the flying yikshaw, causing its flesh and blood to splatter and turn into dust. He did not hold back at all. Chapter 12:30. You're too arrogant. You killed my disciple. Do you think I don't exist? The heavenly corpse old monster roared. Kill him. A group of flying yikshaws and zombies roared madly. There were more than 10 of them. Some flew into the sky and burrowed into the ground. Some ran madly towards Jiang Tian. Go to hell. Jiang Tian slammed his palm down. The earth quaked, the mountains shook and the tombs collapsed. A huge palm print with a radius of several hundred meters appeared. The heavenly corpse old monster and many of his subordinates were turned into meat paste. The zombie clan in this area had been completely wiped out. Their entire clan had been wiped out. The entire place went silent. Oh my god. Everyone was dumbfounded. Xiao Xian's face turned pale and her body trembled. The heavenly corpse old monster had no problem killing overlords below the 3rd level of the Foundation establishment level, but he was killed by Kong Teichu in seconds. Kong Teichu's strength was terrifying. You still have half a minute. Flicking his finger, Jiang Tian's expression was very calm like still water. He was neither sad nor happy as he coldly looked at Ghost Monarch Mang Mountain. Kong Teichu, how dare you kill my subordinate in front of me? Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain was stunned for a moment before he suddenly roared loudly. Are you blind? Can't you see? Jiang Tian sneered. You've gone too far. Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain said arrogantly. Do you think you're a match for me? You're all ants under the deity trap array, but I have a way to break it. My strength is comparable to a golden core cultivator. You're just a 3rd level Foundation establishment level trash. Come on, let's have a fight. You're no match for me. You can't even beat a cat like me. Jiang Tian said with a faint smile. Bastard, I'm going to tear you to shreds. Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain roared and charged at Jiang Tian. His voice was like a sudden clap of thunder. Violent sound waves and airwaves surged, shaking everything within a radius of 100 miles. Trees were broken and mountains were shaking. Is Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain born? Is the war about to begin? Even the citizens of Luoyang City could hear it clearly. They all looked up in the direction of Mount Mang. Some even turned on their live streams. Your Majesty Ghost Emperor, don't be rash. This kid's body is tough to the extreme and his qi and blood are exuberant. Since he has come to throw away his life, I might as well occupy him. In the future when I go out, I won't need to expend any magic power. At the side, King of Halfingdu stared at Jiang Tian carefully, and then saliva dripped down full of greed. Good house, good house. Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain stopped in his tracks and carefully sized him up. Suddenly, his green eyes revealed a look of ecstasy as he let out a strange laugh. This body has qi and blood that has been refined for thousands of years. Its acupoints are unobstructed. Moreover, it is very young and fresh, as pure as a newborn baby. If I occupy this room, not only will my cultivation not be damaged when I travel during the day, my power will also increase tenfold. He didn't even fear those fellows from the Copper Sparrow Terrace and Ipang Palace. I didn't expect you to be so kind as to deliver it to my doorstep for me to use. Good, then this old man will be disrespectful today. Watch me destroy your soul and occupy your body. His body swayed and the golden python robe fell to the ground. He had already turned into hundreds of fist-sized will-o-wisps and drilled into Jiang Tian's 7 apertures. As soon as Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain's soul entered his body, Jiang Tian immediately felt a strong and irresistible consciousness fighting for control of his body. Countless will-o-wisps filled his body and swam in his meridians, making it difficult for him to even move his fingers. You want to possess me with just you. However, Jiang Tian didn't panic at all, and his face revealed a look of ridicule. He was deliberately letting go to test Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain's strength. Otherwise, with Jiang Tian's powerful consciousness and mental strength, how could he have the chance to enter his body? Hearing Jiang Tian's words, Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain's soul, which had already entered Jiang Tian's sea of consciousness, laughed loudly. This old man has been cultivating the Yin Phosphorus Absolute Fiend soul-seizing technique for more than 1,000 years. I can even devour the soul of a golden core cultivator. How can you, a mere Foundation establishment weakling, be my match? However, before he finished speaking, he felt a tremor in his sea of consciousness. The earth and mountains shook, and then a black demon god as tall as a mountain walked over. Against the backdrop of this black divine soul, he felt as weak as an ant or a speck of dust. Soul Devourer. Old Ghost Wang of Hejian was an old ghost of the Han dynasty. He had lived for more than 2,000 years and he was knowledgeable and experienced. 1,000 years ago he had met someone who had the divine sense of a soul devourer by chance. Even if that person wasn't a cultivator and was just an ordinary person who didn't cultivate, he was almost devoured by the soul devourer. This soul devourer was originally an inexplicable mysterious object in the universe. It could devour all mental strength and souls, and it was extremely heaven-defying. Although his Yin Phosphorus Absolute Fiend soul-seizing technique was powerful, It was still a cultivation technique born in the mortal world, and the difference was too big. My life is over. At this moment, old ghost Wang of Hejian couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He didn't dare to seize Jiang Tian's body anymore. He turned into a mass of green phosphorescent light and flew away quickly. Where do you think you're going? The soul devourer demon god roared and turned into a mountain-like demon god. He opened his mouth and sucked. At least 1/3 of the Yin phosphorus was absorbed like a whale sucking water. Old ghost Wang of Hejian was heartbroken. This meant that his cultivation and lifespan were reduced by 1/3. Hundreds of years of cultivation were wasted. But compared to the heartbreak, he was more frightened. Without saying anything, he jumped out of Jiang Tian's 7 orifices. Then he rolled close to the ground and got into the golden python robe. The phosphorescent body expanded and turned into the image of the ghost emperor of Mount Mang, wearing a crown and a python robe with a green face and fangs. It was just that his body was one size smaller, like a little kid wearing an adult's clothes. It looked very funny. We're at a disadvantage. Seeing this, the ghosts were shocked and couldn't believe it. Yama King of Fengdu's face was already pale, but now it was even paler. Kong Teichu, you have a soul devourer. Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang's face was full of resentment and resentment. You have a special body and talent. What kind of ability is that? If you don't use your soul devourer, you won't be able to beat me in Dharma spells and divine powers. You're courting death. Jiang Tian's face was filled with mockery. I have 100 ways to make you wish you were dead. You can't even beat my disciple or my pet, not to mention me. You've gone too far. How dare you? Kid, you don't know your place. Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang, Yama King of Fengdu, Nia Xiaoqian of Lanrua Temple and other ghosts were furious. No matter how powerful Kong Teichu was and how high his status was, Brother Lu of Hejian was the leader of these ghosts. Other than the legendary ghost immortal Cao Cao and Grand Magus Bai Qi, Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang was the most powerful among the thousands of ghost cultivators. He had even killed a golden core cultivator before. But you said that you can't even beat your disciple and your cat. Aren't you being a bully? Fine. I'll lower myself to fight with your disciple. The Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang was not one to lose. He pointed at the Reverend Hong Yi and bellowed. If this old man wins, then this old man won't hold a grudge against you for sneak attacking me. As long as you withdraw from Mount Mang, then from now on, we'll mind our own business. You go your way and I'll go mine. Good. Jiang Tian nodded with a smile. He made concessions again and again because he wanted to beat you until you were convinced and speechless. Only then would you be loyal to him in the future. You're just a kid. How dare you call yourself an old man in front of the sect leader of the 3 realms? Perfected Hongye was furious and took a step forward. This ghost emperor of Mount Mang really knew how to flatter himself. He was extremely shameless. When did my master sneak attack me? Do I have to tell you that I have a soul devourer before the battle to not count as a sneak attack? Even you dare to bully me. You're courting death. Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang roared and turned into green flames. When he condensed again, he had already crossed a few kilometers and turned into the image of a ghost emperor with a green face and fangs. He arrived in front of perfected Hongye. His red hair fluttered in the wind and his face was ferocious. He raised his hand and grabbed. The smell of blood filled the air and a yin phosphorescent flame shot out from his palm. This was the 9 nether green phosphorescent flame that he had cultivated for 100 years. It could take away one's life and shatter one's soul. Even a golden core cultivator would find it difficult to resist. He could see that perfected Hongye was only at the foundation establishment level. Once he used this claw, he would definitely die. He couldn't help but be confident that he would succeed. Fire Jade Ghost Annihilation Kill. Unexpectedly, perfected Hongye waved his hand. A red light suddenly shone in a 10-mile radius. It was as if a sun had appeared out of nowhere. The Yin Qi and the eerie ghost Qi were all swept away. A red jade the size of a copper coin suddenly appeared in perfected Hongye's hand. Waves of heat rolled and flames surrounded it. What is this? It's even more terrifying than the fire jade of Kuan. Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang felt as if he was being fried in oil. The phosphorescent flame around his body collapsed bit by bit. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright. 1,000 years ago, when his cultivation was still low and he had just cultivated the body of a ghost emperor, a sect master of the Maoshan sect came to him with the fire jade of Kuan. The jade talisman of earth and earth fire was of great origin. It was carved from a piece of 10,000-year-old fire jade that the Maoshan sect master had found in the Turpan basin at western border. The talisman was imbued with the power of pure yang, and the talisman was meticulously crafted over 2 cycles of life essence. It was incredibly powerful, yet the Maoshan sect master was still able to break the talisman with all sorts of spells and powers and kill the Maoshan sect master. But he didn't know. The fire jade of Hongye was a treasure of heaven and earth that Huiyen in the West Earth offered to Jiang Tian. It was excavated from the scorched desert and formed the fire lotus earth fire. That was one of the 12 most powerful earth elemental fire in the world, and it was carefully carved by Jiang Tian. How could Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang resist it? Ah! Ouch! Ouch! Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang couldn't bear it. He screamed and used the 13 ghostly steps to retreat as fast as lightning. He steadied himself again and saw that every part of his body that was intact, including his right arm, had been completely burned away. You son of a bitch, you only know how to use Dharma treasures. What kind of skill is that? If you fight with your real strength, you may not be able to defeat me. He used a secret technique to reconstruct his phosphorescent flame body while he cursed and found a way out for himself. Shameless bastard, let's fight another 300 rounds after I recover my body. However, he had used up too much of his phosphorus. His body was already too small, and the oversized golden python robe could no longer support him. With a crash, it fell to the ground, revealing his naked body. The crown also fell to his neck like a necklace. Can someone give me a piece of clothing? Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang half squatted and covered his crotch. He was flustered and wanted to cry but had no tears. He was extremely embarrassed. Chapter 1231. Ghost King. A ghost general did not know whether to laugh or cry. He stepped forward with some sympathy and offered the clothes. Ghost Emperor Mang Mountain quickly put it on. Jiang Tian sneered and said, "Are you still not convinced? If we fight again, you won't even be able to wear this little shirt." "I'm not convinced. Why should I be so easily convinced by you? Who do you think you are?" Ghost King Mang Mountain was ashamed and knew that he was no match for Su Quebec. However, this involved the fate of the ghost cultivators for thousands of years. How could he admit defeat so easily? He was exasperated and speechless. After a long while, he suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the red kitten in Hongye's arms and said, "This is the last round. In the last round, if this old man can't defeat your cat, this old man will completely submit to you and follow your orders. When the war breaks out in the future, I will gather and protect the heroic souls of the soldiers for you. I will work myself to death without hesitation." This kitten was actually the divine soul of Lei Meng left behind after Jiang Tian swallowed the demonic core and blood qi. Previously, he had the combat power of the nascent soul stage. During this period of time, Jiang Tian had fed him the supreme elixirs of thunder wood and heaven thunder bamboo. He could already condense a physical body and turn into a kitten. At this time he had reconstructed his physical body and was gifted with the ability to spit out thunder and lightning. In addition, he had comprehended Jiang Tian's law of thunder and lightning. His strength was no less than a perfected golden core immortal. Ghost King Mang Mountain wanted to pick a soft persimmon, but he didn't know. This seemingly harmless Lei Meng's strength was probably second only to Jiang Tian and the 4 nascent soul stage old monsters. He was several times more powerful than Hong Yi Yi Tianren and Situ Shao. "My wise and handsome lord, is it time for me to make a move?" Lei Meng stretched his body and jumped down, smiling at Jiang Tian with a flattering look on his face. His expression was vivid and lively. "Wait, fellow Taoist Grand Primordium. We can have a good chat." Seeing this, Ghost King Mang Mountain's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little uneasy. "Are you qualified to chat with my master? Who do you think you are?" But before he could react, the kitten had already leaped out as fast as lightning. Lei Meng pounced on Ghost Emperor Mount Mang, spewing out bolts of lightning that sent him flying hundreds of meters away. Half of his body was blasted apart. Seeing this, the entire place was dead silent. Everyone was flabbergasted. Under such a crushing situation, if they still didn't submit, they would probably all be reduced to ashes. "Surrender, I surrender." Ghost Emperor Mount Mang crawled to his feet and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. He kowtowed as if he was pounding garlic. If he continued to kowtow, he really wouldn't have any more suitable clothes. Jiang Tian revealed a faint smile and nodded. Okay, I will go first. Little devil, wait for me at the Ame Daoist sect. Then it turned into a streak of light that pierced through the sky and disappeared. In the White Head Mountain Dragon Pond, the water was clear, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. In a huge cave hundreds of meters under the water, a chilly wind blew and a fishy smell filled the air. The human oil lamp emitted a dim light. Around the table and chairs made of human bones, faint blue phosphorescence floated. An old monster with a dragon head and a human body that was 2,000 years old sat on a giant throne made of countless skeletons and skulls. He was having a secret discussion with a few old demons. Demon Emperor, it seems that Kong Teichu is just as the famous preaching sect said. He is only at the 3rd level of the foundation establishment stage. After being bullied to this extent, he still doesn't dare to come out. It seems that the title of the world's strongest warrior should be changed. The white immortal hedgehog demon said with a face full of disdain. However, the recovery of the spiritual qi is greatly beneficial to us. I think that we should support Kong Teichu. Now that we have established our power, we should be able to gain a place in the Myth Alliance. A beautiful woman in palace attire said softly. Her eyes twinkled as she revealed an enchanting smile. She was the willow deity, the snake demon that had lived under Xianxia Mountain for hundreds of years. She was also a golden core cultivator. Do you think that Kong Teichu will stop the recovery of the spiritual qi if we don't join the Myth Alliance? The yellow immortal was a skinny old man in ragged clothes. He looked like the most common mountain people in the northeast. He squatted on a white birch tree stump, drank a mouthful of extremely strong homemade soju, and smoked a mouthful of extremely choking toad tobacco. A sinister smile that did not match his attire appeared on his face as he laughed. He smiled and said, "If we sign the alliance contract, we will be controlled by Kong Teichu in the future. I think we should not sign it and not join." The old demons kept arguing about this matter. They were so anxious that their faces turned red and their saliva was flying everywhere. Suddenly, the demon emperor flood dragon spirit in the sky spoke with a thunderous voice. "Of course not. Who's Kong Teichu? How dare he order me around? I'm just teaching him a lesson. If he dares to do it again, I will tear him to pieces." The demon emperor is wise. That's right, once the spiritual qi recovers, then our cultivation will improve by leaps and bounds, and Kong Teichu won't be able to catch up with us. When the time comes, our demon emperor will replace him and snatch the training ground of Tianqing School, becoming the leader of the Myth Alliance. The old demons immediately understood and their eyes lit up. They were excited and started to flatter him. The demon emperor is wise. Long live Kong Teichu, go to hell. The demon emperor is the most respected in the mortal world. We can also be conferred the title of Marquis and enjoy wealth and prestige. Many small demons also cheered excitedly when they heard the news. You can tear my lord to pieces in minutes. How arrogant of you. At this moment, a cold voice was suddenly heard. It was Lotus, Old Relay, and Jiang Tian who had arrived. Jiang Tian crossed the Eurasian continent and spread his wings of wind and thunder. His speed was as fast as lightning, and it only took him a few hours to circle the earth. Jiang Tian was the fastest and went to Mount Mang to suppress the Ghost Emperor. He also ordered Elder True Dragon Old Monster Mingi and Elder Takong to rush to Mount Amei to provide support or suppress the famous preaching sections. Lotus, on the other hand, rushed to the dragon pool of Mount Changbai. Lotus was one step ahead, and Jiang Tian only rushed over after suppressing the Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang. However, Jiang Tian's speed was too heaven-defying and he still managed to catch up. "Kong Teichu, you little brat, is here. Come down and fight with me for 300 rounds. The demon emperor roared. A mere flood dragon spirit that hasn't completely transformed is qualified to fight with me for 300 rounds? You really know how to flatter yourself. Jiang Tian's face was filled with cold mockery as he said in disdain. Looks like you have cultivated for 1,000 years to reach your current cultivation. It's not easy. I'll give you a minute to consider. Submit to me and expose the hypocritical face of the famous preaching sects, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise die. Bah! Who do you think you are? How dare you spout nonsense in front of our demon emperor? How arrogant! If you don't scram, I'll kill you first. Zhang Tianya rushed out of the water with an arrogant face full of disdain as he roared. He originally had the cultivation of the early stage of Foundation establishment and had defeated Zhou Yuankuan, who had sent him a message. He thought that Jiang Tian was only at the early stage of Foundation establishment, so he didn't put Jiang Tian in his eyes. How dare you humiliate my master? Your crime is unforgivable. Lotus's face darkened as he executed Vajra unbeatable. He slapped down with his palm, and the huge palm with resplendent Buddha light came crashing down like Mount Tai. What? In that instant Xianxia was so shocked that his face turned pale and he wanted to retreat. He had never thought that the old man behind Jiang Tian would be so powerful. Just the wind from the palm created a huge wave that was 10 meters tall. The ground and mountains within a radius of 10 miles shook, and all the bones in his body were crushed. However, he was too far away from Lotus. He was frozen in place by the huge Dharma power and couldn't take a step back. Smack. Zhang Tianya didn't even last a second before he exploded like a firecracker. His bones were crushed into powder and his organs and blood turned into ashes. Oh my God! This monk's strength is so terrifying. Should we run or surrender? Willow Immortal by Sujuan scanned with her divine senses and was so shocked that her face turned pale. Her full breasts rose and fell violently. She was a golden core expert after all, so she naturally had good eyesight. She could tell that Lotus's cultivation was far beyond that of a golden core expert. How is this possible? Why couldn't the immortal trap formation suppress this monk? White Immortal Hedgehog Demon was so scared that the spikes on his body pierced through his clothes and stood up straight, trembling. If we fight together, we may have a chance of winning. No, we have to divide our forces in different places. The Yellow Skin Demon was so scared that his pipe fell to the ground. Cold sweat poured down his forehead like a waterfall, and he kept drinking to boost his courage. The Dragon Demon King shouted angrily, "Why are you afraid of him? He dared to kill my disciple, so I will kill him. When I get out of the dragon cave, I will fight with him for 300 rounds." Before he could rush out, he heard Lian Xing shouting coldly from outside, "1 minute is up. Go to hell." Before he finished his words, the originally calm lake surged with huge white waves that were hundreds of meters high. The hurricane roared, and the towering trees that were dozens of meters tall around the dragon lake were blown to the outside and broke. The ground shook crazily like the beating of a drum, and the stones that were the size of millstones rolled on the ground. The mountains shook violently as if they were about to collapse. In the center of the dragon lake, there was a huge footprint with a radius of 100 meters. The surrounding water couldn't flow in, and the footprint was so deep that even the bottom of the lake that was dozens of meters deep was exposed. And there were already huge mushroom clouds in the sky. This foot affected the area within 100 miles. Half of the Changbai mountain was shaking violently as if there was a huge earthquake. Oh no! Run! The dragon demon of the Changbai mountain looked up with deep fear on his face. The other demons were also shocked and wanted to run away. But they found out in despair. They were locked in place by a vast aura. Not to mention running away, they couldn't even move their little fingers. Flying. A giant foot wearing straw sandals pierced through the clouds and descended from the sky. Stepped directly on top of the dragon cave, directly crushing the cave that could withstand nuclear weapons and was not afraid of a salvo of missiles. Suddenly, huge waves surged out, more terrifying than hurricanes and tsunamis. The dragon lake that was thousands of meters in radius was completely dried up. Wherever he stepped on, countless rocks and mud would fly in all directions, forming a huge funnel-shaped crater with a radius of 100 meters. The crater continued to expand, and then the entire dragon pond within a radius of a few miles collapsed. This foot was extremely powerful and it didn't lose its momentum. It continued to move downwards, penetrating the hard rocks a few hundred meters deep and crushing the roof of the cave. The foot then stepped on the dragon demon's head. The white bone chair and the altar under the monster emperor exploded and turned into powder. Half of his head almost exploded from the stomp. Blood dripped from his head as he sank 10 meters into the ground before he finally stopped. Chapter 1232. Stop, 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 I surrender. The flood dragon demon emperor howled miserably and grimaced in pain. His eyes were filled with fear as he stared at the shriveled monk. He slapped the ground and shouted. This kick was too ferocious and powerful. He felt that his skull would explode in a second. You scared me to death. Please spare my life, Taoist friend Taichu, please spare my life. We surrender. On the side, the hedgehog demon was so scared that he revealed his true form and shrunk to the size of a palm. GGGGA. The fox demon was so scared that his eyes turned white and he fainted. His crotch was dripping with blood and smelly. Puff puff puff. The weasel crawled on the ground and drank wine to boost his courage. However, he still raised his butt and farted. Stinky yellow smoke filled the air. I told you we can't beat him. Willow Deity by Sujuan was also trembling with a pale face. Do you really surrender? Didn't you want to fight for 300 rounds? Lian Xing kicked him a few hundred meters away. He looked down at the flood dragon demon emperor as if he was looking at an ant and asked coldly. I really surrender. I'm convinced. 300 rounds, are you kidding me? I can't even last one round. The flood dragon demon emperor was in so much pain that he vomited blood. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He was going to die before he won the battle. This old monk was too powerful. He was like a bug under his feet that could be crushed at any time. Damn you, the famous preaching sects, you tricked me. You Jingtian, you're full of nonsense. What happened to the third level of the foundation establishment stage? Even one of Kong Teichu's servants is not only at the golden core stage. You tricked me. A little dragon dares to jump around. Go to the Amei Daoist sect immediately and kowtow to the Taichu sect master. Sign the contract of the mythical alliance. Lian Xing soared into the sky again and said with disdain. Today the famous preaching sects have gathered to attack the Amei Daoist sect. I hope you all come so that I can kill you all at once. Jiang Tian did not even look at the flood dragon demon emperor. He had already turned around and flew toward Mount Amei. During this period of time, Yu Jingtian could be said to be proud and elated. He swept through Kong Teichu's 4 dojos in Wuxia like a hot knife through butter, establishing an illustrious reputation for himself. Almost half of Wuxia's itinerant cultivators had submitted to him. Now he's watching my livestream. The number of fans in my livestream has already exceeded 1 billion, and the number of fans in the media has also exceeded 500 million. A casual post would have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of followers. When he woke up in the morning and greeted his fans in the livestream, thousands of girls would scream. On the other hand, Tianqing School only had a few 100 million fans and they didn't make any big moves. The difference between them was obvious. No wonder Kong Teichu likes to swagger through the streets. It turns out that he enjoys the feeling of being admired by thousands of people. It's really, really good. In the luxurious office of the preaching building, Yu Jingtian, who was dressed handsomely, was fiddling with his phone with a satisfied smile on his face. The preaching famed sect was known as the Nameless Sect. They rarely left the mountains and were much more mysterious than the Kunlun sect. Many people did not even know of their existence. Yu Jingtian, like most of the descendants of the famed sects, kept a low profile. The first 30 years of his life were boring and monotonous. Other than cultivation, there was nothing else. Perhaps he had spent too much time in a life where no one paid attention to him. Now he really enjoyed the feeling of being watched. Therefore, when Zhang Yilin sent the staff of my livestream platform to sign the contract, he immediately agreed. Big brother, you look so cool today. The live stream is about to start. Yu Fenghua walked over and reminded him gently. Are the famed sects of Yin Shang and Dezhou ready? Yu Jingtian asked. They're already on their way to Mount Amei. Yu Fenghua replied. If we take down this dojo today, all of Kong Teichu's dojos in Wuxia will be ours. Next we can take down Sidoni's dojo. Yu Jingtian smiled coldly. He was determined to get it. I think we should be careful about this matter. Although Kong Teichu is not a threat, we still need to be vigilant about their Kuelian system. Yu Fenghua reminded him. I don't care what you think, I want what I think. Yu Jingtian snorted as if he was possessed by a domineering suit. If those Kuelian want to kill us, they will also implicate the civilians. Do you think they would dare to release us on their land? I'm going to take down all of Kong Teichu's dojos. I'll say it again, take down all of them. Don't ask me how many, I mean all of them. Do you understand? I mean all of them. Yes. Yu Fenghua did not dare to refute. Soon the live stream started. There were professional makeup, photography and special effects teams. As soon as Yu Jingtian appeared, many comments popped up. Young Master Yu is the most handsome. Young Master Yu is the best. Facing the camera, Yu Jingtian spoke with confidence and assurance. Hello everyone. According to the plan we announced earlier today, we will attack the Amei Daoist sect. Everyone is welcome to watch. Finally, we are going to attack the Ame Daoist sect. I'm already at the West River, I'll be there soon. I'm also here. I've been waiting for a long time. One after another, fans flooded the bullet screen with gifts. Young Master Yu, what do you think are our chances of winning this time? A fan asked. Do you still need to ask? This question is too stupid. We have already swept the Wudong Daoist sect and the other 3 dojos. Is there any doubt about the Ame Daoist sect? 100%. Yu Jingtian sneered and said with a face full of disdain. Bet on the preaching dynasty. We will win for sure. Everyone flooded the bullet screen with gifts. They were extremely excited. Betting with the preaching dynasty was like picking up money. Do you think Kong Teichu will come out this time? The cute girl and Yu Jingtian chatted with each other on the mic. She stroked her hair coquettishly to express her admiration. Normally he wouldn't dare. Or else when I swept the first 4 dojos he should have come out. Clearly he is scared of me. Yu Jingtian raised the corner of his mouth and sneered with an evil charm and arrogance. He snorted and said, but what does it matter if he comes out or not? In my eyes he is just a chicken and a pottery dog. I can kill him with a raise of my hand. Even if he doesn't come out, I will kill my way to Tianqing school. Sooner or later he will die in my hands. So cool. So domineering. My idol. Yu Jingnan, I am willing to give birth to a dozen children for you. Blow up Kong Teichu's head. How dare he challenge our young Master Yu? As soon as these words came out, countless female fans went crazy. They reposted the video on their Weibo friend circle. In an instant it spread all over Wuxia and the world. In their eyes, Jiang Tian was more aloof. He never appeared on camera or interacted with them. He did not appear on camera for such a big event like the spiritual qi revival. He only sent a letter. Yu Jingtian was more approachable. Moreover, Jiang Tian was too ruthless. He often sent out war cries and mobilized the entire nation to declare war on the ruins of immortality. Where was the ruins of immortality? Why did they have to fight? Wouldn't it be better for everyone to live in peace? Why would Kong Teichu be afraid of Yu Jingtian? Isn't he afraid of losing his tongue? As a diehard fan of Jiang Tian, Big Saber brother Zhang Xian was so angry that his hands trembled when he saw the video. He immediately posted on Weibo and mocked. He is a hero who swept across the 3 realms. When Kong Teichu swept across the 3 realms and fought for Earth, where was Yu Jingtian? He used to be famous on many forums in the dark world. He even risked his life in the United States to secretly take photos of the battle between Jiang Tian and the Universe Shield and Superbrain Man. He had many fans. When the dimensional world descended and the strong cultivators on Earth began to emerge on a large scale, he followed the trend and registered on Weibo. He became a big V and a spiteful person with millions of fans. He was also an internet celebrity. Ignorant. It is Kong Teichu who brought disaster to Earth by recklessly attacking the dimensional world and its forces on Earth. How is Yu Jingtian not a match for him? But you don't know the real strength of Kong Teichu. He's not just a 3rd-level foundation establishment cultivator. He's a fake core cultivator and a nascent soul cultivator. He's not as simple as conquering the 3 worlds. He's already defeated Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and Ancestral Patriarch Takong in the 3rd-level dimensional world. Those people are all experienced nascent soul cultivators. Any one of them can conquer the Earth and become a divine Ancestral Patriarch. Even if you're the old monsters in the famous sects, you're only a few perfected golden core overlords. How can you be qualified to challenge Kong Teichu? Chapter 1233. These preaching qi practitioners didn't know that Jiang Tian had the thick earth God-suppressing chain that could suppress his power and prevent him from touching the heaven and earth cage. They thought that Jiang Tian was only at the 3rd level of the foundation establishment level. It was like hitting a rock with an egg. Grandmaster, I've just received news that Kong Teichu has subdued the Ghost Emperor of Mount Mang and the Demon Emperor of Dragon Pool. A shadow flashed at the door. Karen walked in and reported with a bow. Has the news spread outside? Li Wuji asked. Strange phenomena have occurred in those places recently. Ordinary people don't dare to go near them, so no one has seen it. But Kong Teichu did bring the media there. It's just that the media hasn't reported anything yet. Karen said. Kong Teichu doesn't want to alert the enemy. He'll release the news after subduing the preaching sects. By then the preaching sects will have interesting expressions. Li Wuji chuckled. Then should we warn the preaching sects? After all, they're no match for him. Karen asked. There's no need to warn them. Li Wuji shook his head and smiled bitterly. Or rather, it's useless to warn them. This is the era of great competition, which involves thousands or even tens of thousands of years of competition. If Jiang Taichu doesn't beat them until their heads are drenched in blood, they won't come to their senses and willingly submit to him. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The Kunlun sect will definitely follow Kong Taichu. If the preaching Qi refinement clans immediately submit to Kong Taichu, the Kunlun sect won't have a chance in the future. After all, he now has 4 nascent soul cultivators, 2 guardians and 3 giants. He has a lot of talents. It's best if Kong Taichu annihilates all the preaching clans. Then there will only be a few preaching Qi refinement clans left. The Kunlun sect will at least become an important ally of Kong Taichu on Earth. After all, he still needs to conquer the Sea of Stars. Karen stood on the side, speechless. Go to the Ma Daoist sect and stop the preaching clans with the identity of the Guardians Alliance. That's our attitude, Li Wuji suddenly said after a moment of silence. Yes. Karen nodded. He stepped into the air and turned into a long rainbow that pierced through the sky. As for the Tianqing sect, they had already used military transport planes to transport the many spirit guiding arrays and spirit creation wells to the various dojos of the Tianqing sect in China and the Kunlun sect. Huang Linger was originally in charge of the Ma Daoist right branch. In addition, Situ Xiao was in charge. Now Chao Shixiang and Chao Jinjia were both here as military representatives. Now inside a valley, countless engineering soldiers were busy like ants. Red Leaf and Zhang Qinzhen were on the side giving orders. Military helicopters took off and landed, military vehicles sped along. A giant spirit guiding formation had already been installed. It was made up of countless formation components. The Dao patterns were densely packed and extremely complicated. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a giant well platform. It had a radius of 1 kilometer and occupied a square behind the Amei mountain. The spirit-making well embedded inside was even more complicated and exquisite. The complex formation patterns were like a circuit board, densely packed and intertwined with each other. However, this was only the part above ground. The part deep underground was even bigger. It was a few thousand meters deep and could pierce through a mountain. Senior Situ, do you think Yu Jingtian will really come? A trace of nervousness appeared on Chao Jinjia's face. Now Yu Jingtian had swept through the other 4 Daoist sects like a hot knife through butter. Only the Ma Daoist sect was left. For sure. A trace of seriousness emerged on Situ Zhao's face as he gave a deep sigh. This was a world of great strife. If Jiang Tian succeeded in reviving the spiritual qi, he would have made a great contribution. In the future, the preaching family would have to bow down to Jiang Tian. They could not accept this. In fact, it was not important whether Jiang Tian had revived the spiritual qi or not. The key was that Jiang Tian had threatened their interests. Chao Jinjia's heart sank. She looked at Chao Shixiang and said angrily, "Grandpa, are the government and the military not going to do anything? Are we going to let them do whatever they want?" Yu Jingtian is fighting among himself for his own interests. He is distorting right and wrong and slandering others. You don't know. Chao Shixiang seemed to have aged 10 years instantly. His white hair trembled in the wind. He revealed a sorrowful expression and said, "Now many of the higher-ups are standing on the side of the preaching family. After all, they are also not ordinary. These people are at a high level. Even I can't do anything about it." Some words could no longer be said. The level of the people involved was too high. If word got out, the world would be in chaos. At present, the new and old forces had reached an agreement. No one was allowed to use the power of the secular world. The preaching families and the Tianqing school were allowed to fight. But we can't let so many ordinary people come and watch, Chao Jinjia said angrily as she scanned the crowd on the surrounding mountains. Tens of thousands of people had gathered at the scene. They were all holding mobile phones and video cameras. They were broadcasting the scene live. Netizens all over the world could see it through their live streaming channels. One should know that this place was comparable to a military restricted zone. It was even more important than a normal military restricted zone. How could they let people in? But among the higher-ups, Someone had given the order to allow ordinary people to enter and watch. That was because the back of Mount Amei was also part of Wuxia's territory. It did not belong to Kong Teichu alone. This was a subtle indication of the higher-ups' attitude. That was because these dojos were equipped with small Kuelian guns. If there were no ordinary people watching, the Tianqing school could use the Kuelian guns to shoot down the preaching families. But now their hands were tied and they were afraid to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. There are a few old men who are full of evil intentions and ambition. They want the whole world to see Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school fall into disgrace. That's the only way to let the preaching family surpass them. Zhou Xian sighed helplessly with a hint of worry on his face. Jiang Tian was indeed patriotic and had done a lot of good deeds for Wuxia. But he was also proud and unyielding. He was unwilling to bow his head and fawn over the rich and powerful. He even looked down on many rich and powerful people and spoke bluntly. This made some of the higher-ups think that Jiang Tian was too unruly and difficult to control and get along with. But Yu Jingtian was much more flexible than Jiang Tian. He could be big or small, high or low. He gave a lot of guarantees. The higher-ups liked him very much and gave him strong support. Currently, Special Envoy Shen, who had a close relationship with Jiang Tian, had been demoted and retired due to illness. On Jiang Tian's grandfather's side, Zhang Jinghua's family was also implicated. Zhang Zhonghua had been arrested, and the higher-ups were looking for evidence of his illegal activities. Even the Tang family in Lingnan was affected. Even Zhou Xian was summoned for a talk. He had been relieved of all his duties. Now he was just an external consultant. It could be said that Jiang Tian's influence in the domestic political scene was on the verge of collapse. The higher-ups were extremely unfavorable to Jiang Tian. Of course, behind all this was the power of the Preaching Research Institute. It was obvious that the Preaching Research Institute had infiltrated the higher-ups. Zhou Xian, you are very ignorant. Now what do you mean that we, the preaching family, have surpassed them? We, the preaching family, have always been high and mighty. Kong Teichu is just an ant crawling under our feet. A voice full of mockery rang out from the clouds in the sky like a great bell. Who is it? Everyone's face changed color. They looked up and frowned. In the clouds, a man stood with his hands behind his back. His long robe fluttered in the wind and his black hair flowed like a waterfall. He exuded a faint divine aura as if a real god had descended. He stepped on a bronze cauldron the size of a small hill and rose into the sky like a comet shooting toward the earth. Yu Jingtian. Hu Qingtian was shocked when he saw this. He's here so soon. Zhou Xixiang's face turned solemn as he trembled uneasily. Zhao Jinjia was forced to retreat by the violent aura. Before he arrived, a terrifying aura had already swept toward them. The giant cauldron had 2 legs and 3 handles. It was simple and unadorned. There were carvings of Taowu, Taotai, winged dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise and other mythical beasts. The colorful glow enveloped Yu Jingtian, making him look like an immortal. The dermic power of the giant cauldron was extremely terrifying. It covered a radius of dozens of miles like a tsunami. Everywhere it passed, it was like a great earthquake had erupted, causing the ground to tremble and crack while numerous mountains collapsed miserably and were razed to the ground. This cauldron is so powerful. Situ Shao stared at the bronze cauldron and exclaimed, "Is this one of the 9 cauldrons made by Yu the Great at the Tushan conference?" Yu the Great's 9 cauldrons were the most powerful Dharma treasures of the Great Xia dynasty. They could melt and suppress everything. One cauldron could break 10,000 spells, suppress mountains and rivers and suppress an entire state. Its power was even more powerful than many Dharma treasures in the Divine Investiture War. As for the Qing Suo sword that Situ Shao had used, it was only a treasure from the Middle Ages. It was on a completely different level compared to Yu the Great's 9 cauldrons. Huang Linger, Zhao Xixiang and Zhao Jinjia looked serious as if they were about to face a powerful enemy. What was going to happen had finally happened. Don't be afraid. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon had just arrived. He was trembling and his eyes were cloudy like a servant. He stood behind Huang Linger with the black dog in his arms and shook his head with a mocking smile. This cauldron is only a few hundred years old. It can't be from the preaching era. It's probably a replica. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon was also a flood dragon. He had given himself this name just to make himself look good. But the old dragon was a purple gold true dragon. The true dragon patriarch knew that in time, the old dragon's future would be limitless. Therefore he tried his best to please him these days. He called him brother and fed him with elixirs every day. He even promised that when he went to the Dragon Gate or the ruins of immortality, he would be the matchmaker for the old dragon and find a beautiful flood dragon wife. This made the old dragon restless. Mr. Yu is so cool. He's my idol. Countless people in the crowd looked up and cheered excitedly. He's so cool. He's so powerful. He's really like an immortal. The female fans in particular were screaming hysterically. They were so excited that they almost fainted. The world was about to change on the eve of the spirit chi recovery, and overlords were all out to determine their positions. The ones who attracted the most attention and had the most fans were no longer celebrities, but martial arts overlords and strange people. Their every move affected people's hearts. Blow up Kong Teichu's head. Among the crowd, a tall and beautiful woman looked at Yu Jingtian with admiration. She was so excited that her whole body was trembling. She raised her arms and cheered loudly. Chapter 1234. If Jiang Tian was here, perhaps he would remember this girl. She was Shi Mengwan, who was once engaged to Li Fifan, the son of Li Xianlong, the premier of Singapore. In the beginning, Shi, Xin Lu and Jing Jia were fighting over the hotel for the wedding. She provoked Jiang Tian and spoke arrogantly. Li Fifan tore up the engagement and kicked her out of the house. She was also terminated by Pris and was even banned from the Wuxia entertainment circle. However, Shi Mengwan was an independent modern woman who would never admit defeat. She took a different path and went to Japan to act in a restricted movie. Finally, she became a porn star and captured many otaku fans. This time, when she heard that the preaching family was going to attack Kong Teichu's Ame Daoist sect, she was so excited that she could not sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. She rushed to Mount Ame to watch Jiang Tian embarrass himself and broadcast it to her fans. In fact, not only her, many people came. Wan, Cutie Lee, Old Morgan, Little Rockefeller, many reclusive royalty and the Dragon Protection family. Those powerhouses and figures who had been attacked by Jiang Tian came to watch. If Kong Teichu dies, we can rely on the preaching family and take back our assets. In a remote place, Old Morgan looked at the sky with a telescope. A trace of coldness emerged on his old face and his eyes were filled with hatred. His son Little Morgan was killed by Jiang Tian. His assets were also taken away. He fell from heaven to hell. However, if he wanted to take revenge, his strength was too weak. He would definitely be able to suppress even the Pentagon and sweep through the various multidimensional worlds. However, the rise of the preaching family gave him hope for revenge. After all, this was the origin of the Wuxia civilization. The ancient era was the mythical era. The investiture war was even a myth. Only such a family and powerhouse could kill Jiang Tian. Yu Jingtian came with a cauldron. He was the first to gain the upper hand. Hundreds of thousands of people looked at him and the internet was also boiling. Where is Kong Teichu? Come out and face your death. Standing on the giant cauldron in the air, Yu Jingtian looked down at Huang Ling and the others like they were ants. He shouted. Instantly, his voice reverberated for hundreds of miles. Countless trees collapsed and exploded. Even the mountains seemed to be shaking. At this moment, he could be described as peerless and overwhelming. So strong. As expected of the descendant of great Xiaxia the Great. His might is peerless and his aura is like a mountain. With a single roar, he commands the wind and clouds and shakes the mountains and rivers. In the valley beside the spirit guiding array, Zhou Xian and the others were shocked. They shook their heads and sighed. Now they finally felt a part of Yu Jingtian's strength. He was truly terrifying. Perhaps he was even stronger than Zhou Xian. Although they were the descendants of the reclusive royalty and were the mainstay of the young generation of Wuxia, they were still far inferior to the descendants of the preaching clan. They were still suppressed by the immortal entrapment grand formation and stopped at the heavenly immortal realm. However, the descendants of the preaching clan were not affected at all. They could still advance bravely and reach a higher level. This time the descendant of preaching Yu the Great is here. Let's see if Yu Kong Teichu can still be arrogant. Li Guangzhe had a gloating smile on his face. Yu Jingtan, what do you mean by this? Huang Linger was enraged. Her face was cold as she soared into the sky. She and Yu Jingtian stood opposite each other. You are Huang Linger, right? Yu Jingdun sneered and said, "A gentleman does not fight with a woman. If you hand over the dojo and all the spirit guiding arrays and leave immediately, I will not kill you. If you want to take the dojo, you will have to step over my dead body. You alone may not be able to defeat my Tianqing school." Huang Linger opposed him with equal harshness and did not back down. "What if I join in?" At this moment, another ray of yellow light rose from the sky. It was at least 100 miles away. The sound contained ethereal force. It was channeled by a secret technique and was transmitted clearly to everyone's ears. The yellow light was dazzling and the dermic power was strong. Everyone was blinded by it and could not see clearly. This ray of yellow light came extremely fast. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. In a few seconds it was above the array camp. When the yellow light faded, everyone saw a lean young man standing on an apricot yellow flag. The apricot yellow flag. The descendant of Xianxia, Jiang Feibai. Situ Xiao exclaimed. His eyes were filled with shock. The Wuji apricot yellow flag was rumored to be a defensive dermic treasure used by Xianxia during the investiture of the gods. It was formed from the 5 leaves of the Genesis green lotus and was on par with the holy whip. It could protect one's body from all dermic powers. This flag had destroyed the attacks of countless senior almighties. During the investiture of the gods era, it was extremely famous and made people tremble in fear. Not all of Kong Teichu's subordinates are idiots. You know what's good for you. Jiang Feibai glanced at Situ Xiao and then looked at Huang Linger with disdain. We're here to prevent the world from falling into chaos and stop the recovery of spirit qi. Jiang Taichu was obstinate and self-opinionated. For his own personal gain, he acted unscrupulously and revived the spiritual aura. Once spirit qi recovers, monsters will evolve and demons will run rampant. Even alien civilizations may invade and turn Earth into a living hell. Kong Teichu is risking universal condemnation and ignoring the lives of billions of people, but you're helping him. Don't you feel ashamed? Jiang Feibai questioned loudly. He seemed to be in control of the truth and had the moral high ground. He was very confident. We're recovering spirit qi for the evolution of mankind and to resist the invasion of the dimensional worlds. Why do you say it's for our own benefit? After the battle of the heavenly state, Huang Linger was no longer a weak girl. She had quickly grown into a heroine. In the face of rude questioning and censure, her aura was not weak at all. She said tit for tat. As for the danger you mention, it does exist. However, my Tianqing sect has already publicized the cultivation techniques. These cultivation techniques can only be cultivated by humans, and they will elevate humans to their limits. Do you think that the spirits of all living beings cannot defeat a few beasts? Besides, the Tianqing school and many of its companies and entities have donated trillions of assets to build shelters and fortifications around the world. What have you done for the sake of the human race? Idiot woman. At this moment, Ji Mai's figure resembled a dragon as he swung a huge huang chong in the air and shouted coldly. We stopped you from recovering spirit qi blindly, saved the world and saved thousands of people from hanging upside down. That's a great merit. Don't you see that there are billions of people around the world but only a few 100 million support you? Don't you see that we have billions of people? We're here on behalf of the people. Are you going to stubbornly resist and become the enemy of the world? He waved his hand and glanced at the hundreds of thousands of people present. Are you against the recovery of spirit qi? Let me hear your voices. Yes. We're firmly against it. We want peace, not war. Now that mankind has occupied the top of the food chain, why should we recover spirit qi and let the beasts evolve and eat us? Is Kong Teichu asking for it? Go to hell, Kong Teichu. Tianqing school, go to hell. Kong Teichu wants to be a dictator. He's a war maniac. Inhumane lunatic. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of people around the valley shouted together. The crowd was agitated and their eyes were full of hatred. It was as if Jiang Tian wasn't a savior, but a demon dragging the earth into hell. Did you see that? No one supports Kong Teichu and the recovery of spirit qi. Yu Jingtian smirked coldly and complacently. The onlookers not only shouted, but also took out their guns and crossbows and shot at the people of Tianqing school, throwing stones and so on. Although it wouldn't cause any harm to them, it was a great psychological blow to Huang Linger. She understood that the reason why the preaching family had taken action was because they wanted to seize control of the earth with all kinds of grandiose reasons. She hated the preaching family's pressure, but she understood. However, those ordinary people denounced Zhang Tian and called Zhang Tian a thug, a dictator and a lunatic. That was something she couldn't accept. He could use the spirit qi recovery seeds to treat Sister Qing'er's miscarriage, to cultivate and to reach the ultimate level. Then he could take everyone directly to the ruins of deities in the central galaxy without caring about the lives of others. Zhang Tian was doing it for the evolution and strengthening of mankind and for the safety of Earth. Why was he hated so much? She slowly lowered her head, her beautiful eyes filled with tears. She was on the verge of crying as she muttered, "Humans, don't thank Zhang Taichu. My child, they've been used to peace for too long. They think that survival is a natural thing, not a great fortune." The true dragon patriarch's back was hunched and his voice was hoarse. He stroked the head of the old dragon dog in his arms and looked at Huang Linger. A trace of vicissitudes and sympathy appeared on his face as he sighed. They haven't seen the dangers of the universe and the cruelty of the competition between civilizations. So heroes like our Lord are monsters in their eyes. Not everyone likes heroes, especially when the hero wants to drag everyone into the fight together. When others are sacrificed too. Our Lord's methods have broken the bottom line of morality and values in the peaceful era. Subversive. Thank you for your advice, Ancestral Patriarch Shenlong. Huang Linger trembled as if she had understood something. Then she pulled out the Tianyuan wooden stick and slowly raised her head. She looked at Yu Jingtian and the others with firm and sharp eyes and said coldly, "I don't care how many people object or how much you hate me, but Tianqing School will recover the spirit qi. And I, Huang Linger, a disciple of Kong Teichu of Tianqing School, will guard this spirit qi recovery array and will not retreat a step. Everyone get out of here quickly. Anyone who disobeys will die." Her eyes were sharp and firm and her voice was as cold as a sword. Her voice was sonorous and powerful. Chapter 1235. How stubborn. Where's Kong Te? Is he a coward? How dare he let a woman stop the army of the preaching dynasty? Then another ray of white light flew over. It was Yu Fenghua. Stepping on a meter-long jade ruler, she floated over like an immortal. Her temperament was ethereal just like an immortal. Behind her, Yin Chaoga also arrived with the overlords of Yinshu. Each of them was more powerful than an immortal state overlord. That's the mountain-splitting ruler. In the crowd, the old ancestor of the Ying family was shocked, and his eyes were serious. Legend has it that Yu the Great used the living soil, the mountain-splitting ruler, the He Tu and the Luo Shu with a dragon to open up the mountains and dredge the rivers. This mountain-splitting ruler is a precious treasure. It's so powerful that it can move mountains, fill seas and turn land into rivers. Huang Linger remained calm and said coldly, "We don't need the Tianqing School to deal with you. We are enough." "Huang Linger, I've heard of you." Yu Fenghua looked down at Huang Linger and said disdainfully, "After being played by Kong Teichu, you abandoned him. If I were you, I would kill Kong Teichu and Zhao Xueqing to avenge you." Her appearance was peerlessly beautiful, but her words were extremely harsh and vicious. "Now he's hiding in the back and letting you, a woman, stand up for him. He's a heartless man. But you still shamelessly clung to Zhang Taichu's side. You were willing to be his slave, to be his servant, and to take his blows. You're a disgrace to all the women in the world." That's right. Zhang Taichu was still dreaming of having multiple wives and concubines. He was simply a big pig trotter. "Damn it!" Shi Mengwan shouted. However, she forgot that after Li Fifan drove her out of the house, he immediately remarried. She was pitifully kneeling on the ground and begging for him to marry her. She was willing to be his mistress. However, Li Fifan was afraid that Zhang Tian would ask about it, so he didn't dare to answer and beat her up again. He was already like that to Li Fifan. If Zhang Tian waved his finger, she would crawl to him like a bitch. Kong Teichu let a woman take a blow for him. He's a coward. We should beat him down and stomp on him 10,000 times. Cute Li also shouted to her fans in the live stream. "Down with the pig trotter Kong Teichu. Huang Linger, you've degraded yourself and are shameless. No wonder you're called a woman." Wan also shouted. Hearing this, Situ Xiao, Chao Shixiang and other people who knew the inside story looked at Huang Linger nervously and worriedly. They hated Yu Fenghua for being so vicious. This was Huang Linger's sore point. If it was provoked, it would probably turn into an inner demon. She would be at a disadvantage in the next battle. You're an outsider. What right do you have to say about love? Huang Linger's face was as calm as still water, unmoved. She smiled faintly and said softly, "Now is the time to decide the future and fate of mankind. You and I are in a battle of right and wrong. Love should be put aside. I'm not only fighting for Kong Teichu and Tianqing School, but also for the continuation of human civilization and the safety of Earth. But you're talking about other people's love affairs behind their backs. You're really a gossipy woman. Boring. What's the difference between you and a village woman? You claim to be the descendant of Emperor Yu and the descendant of the famous families of the Qin dynasty. You're a disgrace to your ancestors." Her tone wasn't high, but every word she said hit the nail on the head. Every word was powerful and resonant. It was as if a series of crisp slaps had struck Yu Fenghua's face, causing her beautiful face to turn completely red, and she was extremely embarrassed. Ancestral patriarch Zhenlong gave her a thumbs up and praised. "This woman is soft on the outside but tough on the inside. She's as ambitious as any man. No wonder she's Kong Teichu's woman. She's really courting death. With the deity trap array, she's at most a third-level foundation establishment cultivator. How dare she be so arrogant and disrespect the famous families of the Qin dynasty?" Jiang Feibai, Yin Chaoga and Yu Jingtian were all from the major families of the Qin dynasty. They sneered as if they were looking at ants. Under the suppression of the deity trap array and the lack of spirit qi, all the overlords except the famous families of the Qin dynasty stopped at the third-level foundation establishment cultivator. As for Yu Fenghua, she was a genuine fake core cultivator. How powerful was Yu Fenghua? She could destroy the back of Mount Amei with her bare hands and kill foundation establishment cultivators as easily as killing chickens. "Bitch, you're courting death." Yu Fenghua flew into a rage out of humiliation. She was from a prestigious family, possessed a high status, possessed great ability, and was renowned for her wisdom and intelligence. Since she stepped onto the path of cultivation, she was like a goddess. When had she ever suffered such disrespect and belittlement? "Try me," Huang Linger said coldly. "What a sharp-tongued little bitch. Today I'll tear your mouth apart and feed it to the dogs." Yu Fenghua jumped out of her hand with the mountain-splitting ruler. She was seething with killing intent and her dantian rumbled. She waved her hand casually, slashing it through the air toward Huang Linger. As the mountain-splitting ruler swept across, the earth shook violently and a terrifying earth vein qi gushed out. The sky changed color and the sun and moon turned upside down. Rumble. On the ground, giant mountains grew out of nowhere. Countless boulders and soil surged like tides and formed a giant earth dragon about 100 meters long. The earth dragon was surrounded by yellow earth qi. It was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws like a living creature and charged at Huang Linger with extreme power. "She's dead. That bitch is dead. Kong Teichu, you coward. Look, your woman is about to be beaten to death." Shi Mengwan, QD Li and Wan Wan were all live-streaming on the internet. They cheered for Yu Fenghua and scolded Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. "Go away," Huang Linger shouted angrily. Behind this woman, the green spiritual wood aura surged like a tide, and the shadow of a big tree quickly rose from her back. This tree was completely condensed from second wood essence. It was a few hundred meters tall and its branches danced like giant pythons. Its leaves were verdant and lush and even its charming face was burning green. A huge pressure was brewing on her body. Suddenly, the shadow of the tree rose to 1,000 meters tall again. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. "What's that? Dharma form?" Not only the onlookers, but also the people of the Pre-Qin dynasty exclaimed. Dharma form was at least a false core overlord or a golden core overlord. Was this woman a golden core cultivator? But damn. Countless tentacle-like branches bound the giant earth dragon tightly. They swung it around and smashed it to the ground with a clang. Rumble. The ground shook violently as if a cannon had been fired. A giant mushroom cloud rose in the sky and the earth dragon broke into pieces. Yu Fenghua's delicate body trembled violently, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face instantly became as pale as a sheet of paper. She was extremely shocked and cried out involuntarily, "She has formed a Dharma form." She's a golden core overlord or at least a false core cultivator. But how is that possible? She had always thought that Zhang Tian and his disciples were below the third level of the foundation establishment level. She had been too careless and didn't expect him to use the power of a Dharma form. She was caught off guard and didn't have time to withdraw her golden core Dharma form. She was severely injured. Everyone went silent. They couldn't believe what they had seen. A false core cultivator. How is that possible? The deity trap array has never been activated except on the day the Azure Mystic Sect disciple died. Yin Chaoge, Jimai, Jiang Feibai, and the others all turned pale with disbelief. Even Yu Jingtian seemed to be in deep thought. But they didn't know. Before Jiang Tian left the Heavenly Clear sect and flew to the Death Hill, he had once chopped off a section of the whirling greenwood as the foundation for her would attribute immortal physique. He also taught her the method to forge an immortal physique and change her constitution. Besides, Jiang Tian had obtained many golden cores, grand medicines and spirit herbs after the Scourge World and the Heavenly State. He had also made dozens of supreme treasure medicines for her to forge a deity body. Now her Azurewood deity body had reached the initial success level and she had reached the false core level comparable to Yu Fenghua. However, Jiang Tian had already sensed the existence of the deity trap array when Li Longyuan's son, the Azure Mystic Sect disciple, invaded. How could he not have a countermeasure? He had already taught Qing'er the art of deceiving the heavens, and asked Qing'er to teach it to her disciples to suppress and hide their power. Jiang Tian's cultivation method was extremely powerful. Although the heaven-deceiving mysterious art was not as heaven-defying as the thick earth divine suppressing chains and could not be considered a supreme divine art, it was still a true immortal emperor-level cultivation method. Contained the Tao laws of heaven and earth. Even if they only comprehended 10 to 20% of it, they could still deceive the heavens and cross the sea, and escape from the crude and simple immortal trap great formation in Jiang Tian's eyes. So, even though many disciples had broken through and surpassed the third level of the foundation establishment level, they had never touched the deity trap array. Those famous preaching sects worshipped the deity trap array like a god and only watched to see if there were any fluctuations. How could they know? I'm going to kill you. Yu Fenghua's hair was messy and her clothes were stained with blood. She didn't want to accept such a defeat. Her dantian was destroyed and her golden core was damaged. She wanted to kill Huang Linger to avenge herself. As she roared, her hair fluttered like a waterfall. Her dantian rumbled and streams of earth aura as heavy as mountains pressed down on Huang Ling. With a sweep of the mountain-splitting ruler, huge rocks that were 100 meters tall soared into the air and shot toward Huang Linger like cannonballs. You've gone too far. Huang Linger was merciful. She didn't want to kill at first, but she was furious when she saw Yu Fenghua being so aggressive. She stomped on the ground with her right foot. With a swish, a glittering and translucent azure wood thorn appeared, as if it were carved out of jade, but it was so sharp that it could pierce through an aircraft carrier. Swish. Swish, swish. Those azure wood thorns pierced through many stones, earth dragons and earth chi at lightning speed, then disappeared in front of Yu Fenghua and shot out behind her back with a curtain of blood. When those azure wood thorns flew back to Huang Linger's dantian and sea of chi, Yu Fenghua was bleeding and fell to the ground like a sieve. Even her divine soul and golden core had been riddled with holes. Blood constantly seeped out of her mouth and her beautiful eyes were still wide open, as if she couldn't believe that she was so pale when she had just made her debut and hadn't even reached her peak. Whoosh. The whole place was silent. No one was able to utter a single word. Everyone was stupefied as they watched this scene. They didn't dare to believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 1236. Yu Fenghua had been defeated. He had been defeated by this seemingly delicate and weak female disciple. She was the pride of the Yu family, the descendant of a famous family. How could she be defeated in 2 moves? She didn't know that the wood element was better than the earth element. The wood element was the bane of the earth element's true essence. Besides, Huang Linger had formed a deity body, which was a rare constitution even in the central galaxy or the cultivation world. Yu Fenghua had indeed cultivated earth element true essence, but she didn't have an earth element spirit body. How could she be Linger's match? This woman is quite powerful. Shi Mengwan, Wanwan and the others who had come to watch were dumbfounded. They couldn't say a word. In front of the screen, hundreds of millions of people who were watching the livestream were also dumbfounded. They were as still as statues. How is that possible? Yin Chaoge, Jimai and Jiang Feibai were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. Just then they had mocked Jiang Tian, thinking that Jiang Tian was too weak and didn't dare to come out because he was afraid of the famous families of the Preqing dynasty. But no. When Jiang Tian's disciple made a move, he easily defeated the outstanding talents among them. Even the proud daughters of heaven had their faces slapped swollen. What a cruel woman. Yu Jingtian hurriedly checked on Yu Fenghua's injuries and fed her some healing pills. However, he felt as if his heart was being stabbed by a knife. His widened eyes were twitching rapidly. That was his sister, but she had been injured by Kong Teichu's disciple. Yu Fenghua's injuries weren't fatal, but her dantian and meridians had been damaged. It would be detrimental to her cultivation in the future and she might not be able to improve. Who else dares to stop Tianqing School's Spirit Qi revival plan? Come. Huang Linger said. This woman is so arrogant. Yu Jingtian's eyes twitched. Jiang Feibai's face was as pale as paper. Ji Mai's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Yin Chaoge gritted his teeth, but he didn't dare to step forward. Although their cultivation was a bit higher than Yu Fenghua's, they were still on the same level. They were all in the false core stage. However, Huang Linger had defeated Yu Fenghua in an instant. This caused them to have no confidence that they would win. They were not 100% confident. Even an eagle uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. Yin Chaoge suddenly laughed ferociously and said coldly, "This woman is a demoness and a demon. She has harmed the world. Today, for the sake of the common people, let's ignore the rules of the Jianghu. Let's kill her together." That's right. There's no point in talking to such vicious and stubborn people. Just kill them. Yu Jingtian's murderous aura soared. He harumphed coldly and nodded. Shameless people. You're a group of men, yet you're bullying a weak girl. Do you have any shame? Chao Jinjiao was furious when she saw this. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shouted angrily. But no one paid any attention to him. In the blink of an eye, the descendants of several famous sects took advantage of the terrain and attacked Huang Linger from all directions, ruthlessly and mercilessly. Dozens of miles away on a mountain peak, a young man in a long robe stood quietly and looked at the battlefield calmly. The cool mountain breeze blew at the corner of his white robe, making him look otherworldly, like an immortal descending to the mortal world. A yellow-robed old monk in a loose robe with wide sleeves and straw sandals stood behind him in a servile manner. Jiang Tian and Lian Xing had arrived. Seeing so many strong practitioners on the battlefield, Lian Xing's eyes shone fiercely. He asked carefully, "Master, they are too ruthless. Are we still not going to do anything?" An unpolished jade is useless. Ling has too little experience in battles, so her battle awareness is weak. Jiang Tian looked indifferent and said calmly, "This is a rare opportunity for Ling. To gain experience. Let her hold on for a while longer. Moreover, you, me and Patriarch Shenlong are all here. Nothing will happen to her." Master's right. I can't bear to see this group of people showing off their strength. Lian Sheng and old Rulai nodded respectfully and looked at the battlefield coldly. "And how dare you kill the descendant of the Yu family? Die." Yu Jingtian's eyes were cold as he shook his hand. Boom. The ancient bronze cauldron flew out and became bigger. It fell from a height of a few hundred meters and smashed down like a villa. Kill. Huang Linger's delicate voice was like tearing a piece of silk. Behind him, countless green tree branches and vines rose into the air like dragons, forcibly supporting the huge cauldron. Suppress. Yu Jingtian gritted his teeth and slapped down. A huge palm that was more than 100 meters long pressed down on the ancient bronze cauldron. Instantly, the ancient bronze cauldron sank rapidly. Countless green branches were crushed. Wood shavings flew everywhere and pieces of wood shot out. Wood elemental spirit qi surged like a tide. "I'll kill you," Yin Zhaoge sneered. An item flew out from his dantian. It was a pair of scissors that shone with golden light. The scissors became bigger with the wind. The blade was serrated and shone with a cold light. The handle of the scissors was like a dragon's tail. It looked like two huge golden flood dragons were intertwined. The two blades were like the mouths of the flood dragons. Could it be the golden flood dragon scissors? Seeing this, Xianxia was shocked. This was also an infamous killing weapon during the investiture of the gods period. Legend had it that it was refined by the power of the nine-dragon cauldron for 81 days. Together with the chaos essence golden chalice, it was given by the prime of Tongtian to his disciple, the three sky fairies. Later it fell into the hands of the famous sects in the Yin ruins. This treasure was unfathomable and possessed immense power. Many virtuous paragons and experts during the apotheosized period had died in it. It was stained with the blood of countless heroes. The golden flood dragon scissors was as fast as lightning. It was like the mouth of a flood dragon. It kept opening and closing as it went toward Huang Linger. Suddenly, the vines, trunks and branches that were blocking it were all broken. It was about to reach Huang Linger. In the blink of an eye, the branches that were supporting the ancient bronze cauldron were cut by the golden flood dragon scissors. With a boom, the ancient bronze cauldron fell like a mountain. Despicable! Huang Linger reacted quickly. She flipped and dodged the giant cauldron's foot. Using the momentum of the rotation, she flew up into the sky. She waved her heavenly origin wooden staff and the green wood chi gushed out. It turned into sharp wooden thorns, rolling logs, wooden swords and wooden spears that shot in all directions. Although it was dangerous, it was not weaker than the others. At this time, Ji Mai and Jiang Feibai also took out their Dharma treasures and attacked Huang Linger ruthlessly. Huang Linger was instantly surrounded by the four descendants of the famous pseudo-core sections. It was a peerless killing situation. Originally, with Huang Linger's would immortal physique, even if it was only at greater mastery, she was not afraid of facing four people of the same cultivation level. However, she started cultivating too late and condensing her immortal physique only happened a few months ago. Her strength was greatly reduced because of her minor mastery immortal physique. The descendants of the famous preaching sects were all at the pseudo-core level and had supreme Dharma treasures from the apotheosized period. They were all true artifacts and were 10 times more powerful than normal pseudo-core cultivators. Besides, they often practiced together and cooperated well. Huang Linger was gradually at a disadvantage. You're trying to win with numbers. You've gone too far. At this time, Xianxia couldn't hold back anymore. He shouted and dispersed the heaven-deceiving art. He unleashed his power at the pseudo-core level and released his flying sword. He wanted to join the battle and save Huang Linger. Stop him. Don't let him go up. Let's kill this little girl first. But immediately, some preaching chi refinement families released their Dharma treasures from afar to break the defensive array and attack the spirit guiding array. How shameless! Xianxia was so angry that his teeth were almost broken. He had to take back his flying sword and return to the spirit gathering array to defend against the attacks. These spirit guiding arrays and spirit creation wells were the result of the efforts of Jiang Tian and the whole sect. They could even be said to be the crystallization of human science and cultivation civilization. Moreover, in order to revive the spirit chi, Jiang Tian's treasury had been used up to create these spirit guiding arrays and spirit creation wells. Once they were destroyed, there was no telling when they would be able to create another set. It was very likely that they would never be able to revive the spirit chi. The famous preaching sects are really smart. Kong Teichu's disciples were fooled like idiots. They thought that the other party would keep his promise and fight one-on-one just because he issued a challenge and decided to decide the winner in 3 rounds. So they didn't make sufficient preparations. Too pedantic. What a moron. If all the experts of Tianqing school were here, they might be able to hold on for a while. But now, Shi Mengwan and the others were cheering. Jiang Tian's enemies and opponents were also gloating. Huang Linger used all her strength, but the other party had the advantage of numbers. Their cultivation was on par with hers, and they also had many true treasure or quasi-true treasure magical treasures in their hands. She fell into a passive position and was beaten back again and again. At this time, violent waves of Dharma power attacked. Huang Linger felt that she couldn't even move her fingers. Every move she made was extremely difficult. Her hair was disheveled and stuck to her forehead that was sweating profusely. Her face was flushed red. She was dodging left and right. She was in a sorry state. You're too despicable. What kind of orthodox sect are you? What kind of descendants are you? You're shameless. Chao Jinjia shouted angrily. She flew up to help, but her cultivation was too low. She was directly bounced back by the violent waves of Dharma power. Little girl, this is a war, not a Jianghu fight. Childish. Yu Jingtian's eyes were fixed on Huang Ling. His handsome face was emotionless and cold. He shook the cauldron back and forth. Each wave of attacks was stronger than the previous one. Huang Ling was sent flying in the air like a bird. We're despicable. Kong Teichu is the despicable one. We challenged Kong Teichu to a fight, but he didn't dare to show himself. This disciple of his dares to charge at us. She deserves to be killed. Yin Chaoga sneered proudly. The golden dragon scissors turned into 2 dragon shadows and attacked Huang Linger crazily. Taichu sect master is the ruler of the 4 realms. He has killed countless ants like you. Huang Linger blocked and shouted angrily. He doesn't need to be afraid of you. He's in seclusion. Besides, the few of us are more than enough to kill you. Little girl, how dare you be so arrogant? At this time, Yu Fenghua had already used a secret technique to refine the healing pills and healed her wounds. She stood up and laughed coldly. In your eyes, Kong Teichu is like a god. But in the eyes of the orthodox sect, he's just an ant. Letting him be a servant of the preaching dynasty is already an act of mercy. It's already an honor for him. It's his great honor. She was arrogant and said arrogantly, kneel and surrender immediately. Become a servant or we'll kill you. Chapter 1237. You want me to kneel and surrender? Dream on. Huang Linger was not afraid at all. She was furious and attacked even more fiercely. Kill him. At this time, the descendants of the Qin dynasty's famous sects were all ready to kill. Immediately, many Dharma treasures attacked Huang Linger. Swish, swish. A golden rope swept out from Jiang Feibai's hand like a golden poisonous snake. It was as fast as lightning and firmly tied up Huang Linger. Immortal binding rope. The top treasure of the investiture of the gods. Seeing this, Hu Qingtian's heart sank when he saw this from the corner of his eye. Open! Huang Linger shouted angrily. The surging greenwood qi turned into swords and blades that could cut through diamond and cut outside. However, it could not do anything to the rope at all. Even her Dharma power was restrained. She could not help but turn pale with fright. After all, this was a famous existence in the investiture of the gods. It was used by Zhu Lusun, one of the 12 golden immortals of the Chan sect. It was a quasi-true artifact that could change according to the user's size. Its strength was not to be underestimated. Die. Yu Jingtian sneered. He stepped forward and made a gesture with his fingers. Boom. There was a loud noise. The ancient bronze cauldron shone with a green light and quickly expanded into the size of a small mountain. It covered the sky and the sun and smashed down on Huang Linger's head. Humph. If Kong Teichu doesn't come out, we'll kill his disciple. Let's see how long he can hide. Yin Chaoga laughed strangely. The 2 golden dragons formed by the golden dragon scissors bit Huang Linger's chest. Wuxia, when did you mortals have the right to speak? Gimai sneered. His eyes were cold. He swung the golden dragon scissors and slashed at Huang Linger's back. At this moment, it was a peerless killing situation. No one could save Huang Linger. Hu Qingtian blocked many attacks and guarded the soul channeling array. He could not help but shout anxiously, Taoist Zhenlong, are you still not going to help? In the face of the threat of death and the attacks coming from all directions, Yi Zichen had no choice but to accept them. Huang Linger was in despair, but she was surprisingly calm. She only felt a little regretful. I didn't protect the Great Spirit guiding formation well. I'm afraid he'll be a little disappointed with me when he finds out. Very good. Suddenly, a sneer was heard. The sneer suddenly turned into a roar. I'd like to see who can kill my Kong Teichu's men today. This explosive shout was like the roar of a dragon, like the collapse of the heavens and the earth. Instantly, the mountain rocks exploded, and the clouds and mist dispersed like boiling water. Heaven and earth changed color and the sun and moon were hanging upside down. The entire area of the back of Mount Immerse was shaking violently, and everything was in chaos. A loud shout could be heard, but the person had yet to arrive. However, Huang Linger's heart was already at ease after hearing his voice. She no longer had the slightest fear or worry. Although she had experienced the battle of the Heavenly Kingdom, and her temperament had long been as steady as Mount Tai, far surpassing that of ordinary people. In the face of the threat of death and the siege of 4 false core powerhouses, this woman's heart was definitely still a little scared. However, in the fierce battle, her adrenaline was rapidly secreted. She simply did not know pain, and she also forgot about fear. However, at this moment she completely relaxed and calmed down. There was no longer the slightest fear, and she even revealed a mocking smile. The anger on Hu Qingtian's face also turned into gloating. Zhang Tian originally did not intend to take part in this battle with many hidden forces. It was completely for the sake of training his disciples. Otherwise, if the 4 nascent soul-old monsters attacked together, they would not be able to survive. However, the famous preaching sects were too aggressive now. Zhang Tian had no choice but to take action. Once Zhang Tian took action, he would definitely crush them with absolute strength. He would definitely be ruthless and eliminate the root of the problem. In fact, even before Zhang Tian arrived, his terrifying spiritual energy had already frozen many of the magical treasures. Even the deity-constricting rope was frozen stiff and fell to the ground. Taking advantage of this time, Huang Linger retreated and landed beside Hu Qingtian and ancestor Zhenlong. She looked at the sky with anticipation and excitement. Who is it? The power of one roar was able to erase the spiritual energy of our magical treasures. Although it was only for a moment, it was still terrifying. Could it be Kong Teichu? Yu Jingtian and his sister Yin Chaoge Jimai Zhang Feibai, and the others all looked up at the sky. Their faces were extremely solemn, and a trace of fear flashed across their eyes. Unknowingly, a tall and handsome figure stood in the sky with his hands behind his back. His white robe fluttered in the wind, his eyes were as bright as the stars, and his handsome face was flawless. He was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. Kongti, when did he arrive? Seeing this, the descendants of the major sects of the preaching dynasty were even more shocked. In fact, Zhang Tian was already very close, but their sharp divine senses did not detect him. It was evident that Zhang Tian was definitely something. I didn't come out of seclusion. The reason why I released so much information is that I wanted to give you a chance to live on account of the great contributions your ancestors made to the Wuxia civilization. I want you to know when to stop and retreat. The next moment, Zhang Tian stepped down from the sky and landed in front of Huang Linger. He faced the many overlords and said calmly, "However, you took my concession and my kindness as weakness and thought that I was afraid of you. You took my threat as a bluff. In fact, that's not the case. You are not qualified to compete with me, Kong Teichu. If I come out of seclusion, I will crush you like chickens and dogs. Even if your seniors are here in person, your ancestors might not be able to defeat me." The entire place was dead silent. Then, like a market, it became extremely noisy. Countless onlookers' eyes almost popped out when they heard this. They looked at the arrogant Zhang Tian in shock as if they had seen a madman. Is he going to challenge all the famous sects of the preaching dynasty alone? What did this madman say? He's not even afraid of the ancestors of the preaching dynasty. They are Yu the Great, Shangtang, King Wu of Shou, and Xianxia. Which one of them is not as powerful as the gods? Among them, there is no lack of founders of the Wuxia civilization and the source of cultivation methods. This guy is really not afraid of the wind cutting his tongue. Arrogant. There is no end to his arrogance. Yu the Great is one of the founders of the Great Xia civilization. Kong Teichu dares to be disrespectful to him. Isn't he forgetting his ancestors? Everyone doubted their ears, especially Shi Mengwan and the others, who were inciting the emotions of the netizens in the live broadcast room. This is simply a fancy way of courting death. Even Yi Yuhui and the others of the League of Defenders of Wuxia were shocked and couldn't believe it. Zhang Tian was very powerful. He had once swept through 3 dimensions. Such a glorious record could be said to be earth-shattering and unprecedented. Reclusive royalty was something that the Holy See, Brahmin and Kunlun sect on earth paled in comparison. However, Zhang Tian was facing the descendants of the famous sects of the preaching dynasty, the Orthodox Shenmen sect. Now everyone had figured it out. The Ruins of Immortality was built by Emperor Zhongli, the leader of the escapees, in order to preserve the roots of the ancient earth during the Battle of Immortals. The current earth was the foundation and homeland of the Ruins of Immortality. Emperor Yu, the ruler of the Great Xia, was a staunch rebel. He guarded the earth and had the same status and strength as Emperor Zhongli. If that was the case, the Dharma treasures and resources left by Emperor Xing, the lords of the various dimensions, and Yu the Great should be equal. The resources of Emperor Yu the Great were at least not much less than that of Emperor Zhongli. If that was the case, then what was the big deal about Jiang Tian sweeping through three-dimensional worlds? After all, he didn't take down the ruins of immortality after killing Emperor Sheng. How could he be qualified to challenge the descendants of Emperor Yu the Great and the famous sects of the Preaching Dynasty? You're too arrogant. You're courting death. As for Jiang Feibai and Yin Chaoge, their faces were extremely gloomy and they glared at Jiang Tian. Kang Teichu, you're indeed arrogant. How dare you slander and belittle the ancestor of Wuxia? Do you really have to do this? Yu Jingtian carefully sized up Jiang Tian. Suddenly he let out a sinister laugh. His expression was filled with ridicule as he said, I'll call you Sect Master Jiang out of respect. If I don't, you're just a weakling at the third level of the Foundation establishment level. You're just a piece of trash who relies on women to support him. I can crush you to pieces with a wave of my hand. In fact, he should have been wary of Jiang Tian. After all, Huang Linger had displayed the power of a fake core cultivator and showed her Dharma form to defeat Yu Fenghua. As Huang Linger's teacher, Jiang Tian wouldn't be weak at all. After all, Jiang Tian had also released part of the videos and the power shown in them was extremely terrifying. He had carefully scanned Jiang Tian's Dantian with his immortal will and found that he was indeed only at the third level of the Foundation establishment level. As the founder of the Great Xia, Emperor Yu the Great didn't just control the flood. He also suppressed many monsters. During this entire process he'd created the all-seeing eye technique and it was extremely clear. Not only was it capable of observing mountains and rivers, it was even capable of distinguishing evil spirits and demons. In the ancient times many monsters ran rampant. They could create illusions, form Dharma forms and even take human form. Some Qi refinement cultivators could even create external avatars. However, all of these abilities couldn't hide from the all-seeing eye, and their true forms were revealed. Illusions were basically immortal will divine powers used to confuse people. As long as the opponent's immortal will was strong enough or had a special Dharma art to break illusions, they could immediately see through it. The Dharma golden body was formed by using immortal will to activate the golden core and the Sarira to form a new body. It was like a clone that could replace the original body to attack. However, it still couldn't exist without the original body. If the original body and the golden core were destroyed, the Dharma form would also disappear. The most powerful one was the external avatars. They could steal the creation of the world and were extremely exquisite. Every external avatar was like the original body. It was a brand new self with independent consciousness. It could exist independently and also cooperate with each other. Therefore, if the external avatars attacked, it would be difficult to find the original body. However, the divine eye passed down by Emperor Yu the Great could easily see the original body behind the external avatars. It was extraordinary and powerful. After Yu Jingtian activated his divine eye, he didn't see any golden core or core embryo in Jiang Tian's Dantian. He believed that Jiang Tian was a Foundation establishment cultivator. I'm a piece of trash? Jiang Tian chuckled. But to me you're the ant. You don't have the right to fight with me. Even if your ancestor came back to life he might not be a match for me. Good. Ant. Today I'll show you who's the ant. Yu Jingtian laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He couldn't control his anger anymore. He flew into the air and controlled the bronze cauldron to approach Jiang Tian. Chapter 1238. Yu Jingtong, why don't you lead the preaching sects to surrender? Suddenly, a figure in a red Taoist robe dashed over and stood between the two. You are no match for Jiang Taichu and we are in dire need of manpower right now. I believe that if you come to your senses, apologize sincerely and pledge your loyalty to him with the generosity of the leader of the Taichu sect, he will definitely spare your lives. It was Yi Karen who had arrived in time to mediate the situation. She had seen the horrors of the lower dimension. She hoped that everyone would unite around Jiang Tian. Only then would they have a chance to survive. Yi Karen, are you out of your mind? You want him to give me a chance to live? Yu Jingtian put away the cauldron and sneered. Yi Karen, are you blind? Don't you know that the preaching sects have already wiped out all 4 of Kang Teichu's dojos? Yu Fenghua mocked. He is just a level 3 foundation establishment cultivator from the Gu Kingdom. How dare the Kunlun sect carry his palanquin and play the drums for him? Shame on you. We finally forced him out. We're finally going to succeed. Now you want us to stop, you want us to submit, and you want us to apologize. Are you out of your mind? Yin Chaoga Jimai and Jiang Feibai snickered. Yi Karen shook her head in disappointment. The power structure of the Pre-Qin dynasty was far inferior to Jiang Tianjin's. It was like the difference between the clouds and the mud. The Pre-Qin sects only cared about fame and fortune, but Jiang Tian's only concern was for the benefit of the entire human race. Kong Teichu is telling the truth. Yi Karen held back her anger and said patiently. His power is not as simple as you think. If you insist on going your own way and underestimate his strength, it will be too late for regrets. Are you on Kong Teichu's side or the Kunlun sect's? Suddenly Yu Jingtian's eyes flickered as he asked. I am on Kong Teichu's side. What, do you still want to kill me? Yi Karen's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness as he said. Ji Mingchuan's face tightened. He quickly stepped forward and said flatteringly, Young Master Yu, please forgive Yi Karen for my sake. Don't worry, I know you like her. I won't kill her. Yu Jingtian nodded. Karen stepped back. The Kunlun sect doesn't need to get involved in this mess. You will only get yourself killed if you follow Kong Teichu. Ji Mingchuan looked at Yi Karen and persuaded him with a smile. Traces of admiration could be seen in the depths of his eyes. Get lost. Yi Karen's pretty face was as cold as an ancient glacier. Her eyes were cold and she said without any hesitation. Who do you think you are? How dare you call the sect master's name? I'll settle the grudges between your Ji family and my Yi family sooner or later. You. What? Ji Mingchuan was so angry that his body trembled. He had been humiliated by Yi Karen in public. That's enough. Now is not the time to talk about this. Let's talk about something more important. Yu Jingtian waved his hand and asked him to step back. He looked at Jiang Tian and Yi Karen with disdain, then raised his hand and sneered. Yi Karen, you can't do anything alone. So what if you support Kong Teichu? Don't you see how many people support me? The royal family of the Ming dynasty and the Huangjue temple support the Pre-Qin dynasty. Boom, boom. An old monk slowly rose into the sky like a dragon. He brought with him a huge pressure and flew over. Greetings, ancestral patriarch. The patriarch's cultivation seems to have improved. Zhou Xian knelt on the ground and trembled with excitement. Then beams of light flashed across the sky. Li Guangyu, the head of the Li family of the Tang dynasty, and Zhu Guanlan of the Zhu family of the Ming dynasty had all arrived. Even the hidden descendants of the great Han dynasty came out with a snake-slaying sword. The descendants of the great Song dynasty, the Zhao clan, also showed up. These people were the top overlords in the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. They were even more powerful than the original Reclusive Royalty Alliance, which showed how powerful the Pre-Qin dynasty was. Reclusive Royalty Alliance supports the Pre-Qin dynasty. Kong Teichu, you're just a commoner. How dare you lead the Myth Alliance and command the heroes of Wuxia? Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, why don't you submit to the Pre-Qin sects? That's the only way you can survive. After all, you're not their match. As long as you submit, this old man will put in a good word for you. After they arrived, they stood on the side of the Pre-Qin dynasty without hesitation. Some looked at Jiang Tian and ordered him directly. Some reprimanded him harshly. Some tried to persuade Jiang Tian to change his mind. Even the older generation of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance supported the Pre-Qin dynasty. As for the younger generation, Zhu Xian, Li Guangkol and the others, they were more confident and reprimanded Jiang Tian. There are several existences beyond the heaven immortal realm. How can Kong Teichu defeat them? The old monk of Huangjue temple seems to have reached the false core stage. That's amazing. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even an ant can bite an elephant to death. Now there are already 6 false core stage cultivators and countless heaven immortals, earth immortals and human immortals. Kong Teichu is like iron. How many nails can he crush? Yeah. If the Reclusive Royalty Alliance didn't rebel, Kong Teichu might have a 50% chance of winning. But no. People were shocked to find that these big shots were all beyond the heaven immortal realm and had reached the middle stage of foundation establishment. For a moment, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Kong Teichu was bound to lose. If he didn't surrender, only death would await him. Shameless. Ying Laozu was so angry that his hair stood on end and his body trembled. He stepped forward and shouted angrily, "The Preaching Dynasty taught you the method to break the immortal trap formation. You betrayed us and tore up the agreement with the sect master of the Taichu sect on Qingsong Peak in the Lansong River? What's the difference between you and a beast if you don't keep your words? Ying Laozu, we're doing this for justice. You're the one who's using your power to avenge private grudges. You're distorting the truth." Yi Wei took a step forward and coldly snorted as he unreasonably argued. "What did you say? I'm distorting the truth?" Ying Laozu frowned and asked. "Don't play dumb." Yi Hui's appearance was extremely beautiful, her tender voice was like the chirping of an oriole, but her mouth was sharp and her words were like swords. Ying Su asked for the method to break the immortal trap formation from the Yu family of the Preaching Dynasty. "Young master, you thought that he was a bad person and refused. When he saw that we all got such a cultivation method, he was jealous and held a grudge. He attacked us in the base of the Guardians Alliance in Wuxia to vent his anger. After severely injuring dozens of powerful cultivators, he fled and betrayed the Guardians Alliance in Wuxia. Since then, the Yu clan has ordered that the famous preaching clans are not allowed to reveal the method to the Ying clan. Therefore, you have been harboring hatred in your heart. Today you ignored the big picture and helped the villain do evil by supporting Jiang Taichu." She flung her sleeves and said disdainfully, "You're Ying Laozu of the Great Qing dynasty. How could you be so despicable? Don't you know shame? Don't you know that we're already being merciful by not hunting down Ying Su?" "Yes, that's true. If we hadn't shown mercy at that time, Ying Su would have died an unnatural death. But you don't know how to be grateful and bite the hand that feeds you. What's the reason?" Ji Mingchuan, Li Guangkou and Zhu Xian all agreed. "You're slandering me." "Nonsense." Ying Laozu was so angry that he couldn't stop trembling. Smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices and his eyes were about to spit fire. Originally, it was Ying Su who exposed the collusion between the Preaching Dynasty and the demon race. Ji Mingchuan was afraid that the matter would be exposed, so he led a group of royal family members to attack Ying Su. He was filled with righteous indignation, but considering that it was only a one-sided story and there was no evidence, he didn't announce it publicly. But he didn't expect that they would accuse him first. Ying Laozu couldn't stand it. He raised his hand and was about to kill. "Ying Laozu, are you going to attack a junior?" Ji Mingchuan took a step forward and said disdainfully, "What kind of senior are you? How can you act like an elder?" "Ying Laozu, if you dare to attack Yi Hui, I'll kill you first." Yu Jingtian looked at Yi Hui with admiration and then said to Ying Laozu coldly with killing intent. Ying Laozu's vision turned black and he almost fainted. He then smiled sadly and said, "Originally, I still had a glimmer of hope for the reclusive royalty of the Preaching Dynasty. Today I finally understand that all of you are already rotten and depraved to the extreme, rotting from the roots. What era is it now? You're still dreaming of restoration. It seems that only Kong Teichu can save the watering world." He realized that it was useless to say anything now. He took a step back and didn't say anything. His killing intent surged as he waited for the battle to break out. Yi Karen looked at Ji Mingchuan, Yu Hui and the others and sneered, "You'll regret it if you turn black into white and become enemies with Kong Teichu." Lady Wu also stepped forward and said coldly, "Don't you know whether you're doing this for justice or for your own interests?" After being humiliated by Yi Karen, Ji Mingchuan's love for Yi Karen turned into hatred and he said angrily, "Yi Karen, you're the ones who don't know what's good for you. You can't see that the torrent of history can't be stopped. Yi Karen, you'll regret it if you join forces with Kong Teichu. You don't know the strength and deep foundation of the Preaching Dynasty." Yi Hui sneered. Forget it, forget it. Good words can't persuade those who deserve to die. We've said all the good words but they still don't repent. Then let them die." Yi Karen and Lady Wu looked at each other angrily. They knew that it was useless to say anything more, so they sneered and stopped talking. "Kong Teichu, you've seen how many people are on my side now." Yu Jingdun looked at the experts around him and sneered proudly, "This is the will of the people. This is the will of the people. This is the will of the people. Those who are just will get more support while those who are unjust will get little support. Are you still going to stubbornly resist until the end? Do you really want to fight to the death with us?" In the entire world which forces worthy of me Jiang Taichu fighting to the death? Jiang Tian looked coldly at them and let them do whatever they wanted. Then he sneered disdainfully, "You've overestimated your strength. Do you think you can defeat me with a few mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators? Dream on. Now kneel down and hand over the spirit chi recovery seed. Then I'll only destroy your cultivation and spare your life. Stubborn. I'll send you on your way." Yu Jingtian, the descendant of the Preqin dynasty and the heir of the Yu family, was so angry that he laughed. He raised his hand and the bronze cauldron came crashing down on Jiang Tian like a small mountain. Boom. The ancient bronze cauldron emitted thousands of rays of light and thousands of auspicious colors. Vast waves of dermic powers hung down like silk ribbons. Every single wave of dermic powers could crush a mountain peak and split open the void, enveloping an area of 10 miles in radius. The aura was extremely powerful. "Zhenlong, you can attack now," Jiang Tian said coldly. Chapter 1239. You're asking your servant to fight? Kong Teichu, do you think I can't even defeat this old man who's barely at the foundation establishment level? Yu Jingtian's face was full of disdain. He was almost angered to death by Jiang Tian. This was a great humiliation. The ancestral patriarch of the true dragon sect was hunched over. His eyes were cloudy and his clothes were tattered. He was panting heavily as if he was about to die. Kong Teichu is looking down on us. Kong Teichu is obviously scared. He doesn't dare to fight, so he's asking an old servant to be his cannon fodder. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe what they were seeing. On one side was Yu Jingtian, who cultivated the orthodox cultivation methods of the Xian men and had inherited the true teachings of the Qi cultivators of the Preqin dynasty. On the other side was an old man with wrinkles all over his face, who looked like he was about to collapse at any moment. They wondered if Jiang Tian had lost his mind. Why did he ask the two of them to fight? Were they really on the same level? Yes. He's enough to kill you. Jiang Tian nodded. Good. Kong Teichu, how dare you look down on me? Then this young master will kill this old thing and then kill you. Suppress him. Yu Jingtian roared furiously. His hair was disheveled. He stepped forward and made a series of hand seals. The bronze cauldron expanded again. Its vast dharma power was pushed to the extreme. It was so powerful that it could crush mountains and shatter the earth. "Master, I've received your order." At this moment, Ancestor Azure Dragon, who originally had a hunched back, turbid eyes and slow movements like an old man, suddenly straightened his back. Suddenly. It was as if a primordial beast had been awakened and a peerless heavenly sword had been unsheathed. The world was filled with violence, brutality, cruelty and killing intent. Boom. At this moment the world changed color. The sun and the moon were reversed. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon's energy surged from the early stage of the foundation establishment level to the golden core level and then to the nascent soul level. It didn't seem like it was going to stop anytime soon. His dantian rumbled and a huge Jiao dragon dharma form slithered out. It had a dragon head and a human body and it was mighty and mighty. It stood on the ground and was 1,000 meters tall, even taller than the surrounding mountains. What is this? Yu Jingtian's face turned pale. It was too late for him to retreat. Little worm, die. The Jiao dragon's celestial body stepped out and trampled Yu Jingtian and the ancient bronze cauldron under its feet. The flood dragon dharma form and the true dragon patriarch spoke at the same time. Their voices were like thunder, shattering the clouds in the sky. In this ancestor's eyes, you're nothing more than an ant and a speck of dust. How dare you act rashly in front of my master? The whole place was dead silent. Everyone was flabbergasted looking at this scene in disbelief. At this moment, everyone was suppressed by the true dragon patriarch's energy. They trembled and felt like their bones were about to shatter. What is this? Yin Chaoge was so frightened that his body trembled. He felt like he was being crushed by thousands of mountains, or rather, a vast continent. His muscles were spasming and his bones were cracking as if they were about to fall apart. His body was restrained by the Jiao dragon's energy, but he couldn't even move his little finger. Plang. Jimai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His hands were trembling so much that his axe fell to the ground and hit his feet. He gritted his teeth in pain. What a terrifying energy. What a powerful Dharma form. Jiang Feibai activated the apricot yellow flag and a yellow light enveloped his body. He stumbled backward and sat on the ground. He moved backward on all fours as if he had seen a demon. Our young master couldn't even withstand one attack. How could this be? Clatter, 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 clatter. Yu Fenghua's teeth fiercely clattered against each other. Her beautiful face was as white as paper and cold sweat rolled down her cheeks. How powerful was the true dragon patriarch? He was the dominator of the Dragon Gate world 1,000 years ago. He had a 6th grade golden core when he formed the core and had the Jiao dragon bloodline. When he reached the nascent soul level, his Jiao dragon bloodline had reached the phenomenal success level. His Dharma form was so powerful that it could destroy cities and countries. An expert like him, even if placed in the ruins of immortality, would be a tyrant, an unparalleled giant. Besides, he had been following Jiang Tian ever since he came out of the Thunder Lock. Jiang Tian was so experienced that he could easily point out the key points. As for ancestral patriarch True Dragon, he had lived for thousands of years and was very experienced. He was immediately enlightened and broke through the obstacles and shackles. His cultivation improved 1,000 times in a day. At that moment he was only one step away from the real nascent soul level. As for Yu Jingtian, what was he? One had to know that when planet destruction had descended and the twilight of the gods had arrived, the 2 stars of the south gate of the ruins of immortality had set up the immortal trap array. The immortal trap array had been suppressing the earth while planet destruction had been devouring spirit chi in the depths of the earth. Now Earth had become a dead planet in a cage. The age of doom had arrived and cultivators were dying. A single thread couldn't be made into a line and a single tree couldn't become a forest. The prosperity of a civilization couldn't be achieved by a few elites and families. Instead, it required hundreds of millions of people to work together, support each other and compete actively. Only then would it be possible. The cultivation arts and divine powers left by Yu the Great were indeed good. However, the problem was that after entering the age of chaos, the Yu family's martial arts were never passed down to outsiders. They were even passed down to males and not females. They only passed down the martial arts to a single person, and only a few people were able to practice it. If he kept it to himself, then he would not be able to supplement, perfect, or improve the cultivation technique. Instead, the cultivation technique would become worse and worse, more and more incomplete. So, the divine powers of the Yu family and the other famous families in the Qin dynasty couldn't be compared with those in the ruins of deity or the multidimensional worlds. Besides, he was only a false core cultivator. Even if he could use the full power of his cultivation arts, how could he compare with a nascent soul cultivator? Ah, let me go. Yu Jingtian roared and screamed under the dragon's feet. He couldn't accept the fact that he had lost. The true dragon patriarch's stomp was too powerful. It was as heavy as a mountain. It stomped him 10 meters into the ground. His bones were broken and his tendons were broken. He was bleeding profusely. He looked like a bloody, twisted rag. But he had a false core cultivator to provide him with blood qi. So he wouldn't die immediately. Seeing Yu Jingtian in such a miserable state, everyone looked at the true dragon grandmaster and the huge Jiao dragon Dharma idol, as well as Jiang Tian behind him. Yes, compared to the true dragon patriarch, they were more afraid of Jiang Tian. If the true dragon patriarch was so powerful, and yet he was willing to be Jiang Tian's servant, then Jiang Tian's strength was unfathomable. Unfathomable. Yu Jingtian was in a sorry state. Although he was afraid, he was more angry and unwilling to admit defeat. He thought of himself as the descendant of Yu the Great. Yu the Great was the origin of Wuxia's civilization, the founder of the Great Xia. As his descendant, what kind of glory, what kind of high and lofty position was that? So he looked down on Jiang Tian. That was why he thought that Jiang Tian was just a commoner. He didn't have the right to command the heroes and revive the spiritual energy. So he came here today with the determination to win. He wanted to use Jiang Tian as a stepping stone to his position in front of billions of people around the world. He wanted to stomp Jiang Tian into the dust to announce the return of the Great Xia and restore the glory of the Great Xia. But he didn't expect that he couldn't even defeat an old servant of Jiang Tian. It was like falling from heaven to hell. He couldn't accept this cruel reality. He roared angrily. Kang Teichu, how dare you humiliate me like this? Let me go. Bow your head and apologize to me. Do you know that there are Jindan stage cultivators in my family? People like you don't have enough strength. You always like to brag about your family background. It's really despicable. Zhang Tian shook his head in disappointment and mocked. Don't you know that a real man has to rely on himself? Relying on the heavens, the earth, your father and your ancestors is not a real man. But what about you? You bully others with your power. You are full of petty schemes. You don't care about the big picture and you distort the truth. If your ancestors knew that you were like this, they would be so angry that they would crawl out of their graves. But you don't have the techniques and magical equipment passed down by your ancestors. You don't have the protection of your family. What are you? Zhang Tian sneered and mocked. Now that the world is changing, I, Kong Teichu, am also in need of people. If you were a talent, I might be willing to take you as my subordinate. But unfortunately, you are too weak to be my subordinate. Zhang Tian's eyes flashed with coldness. He said indifferently, kill him. How dare you? Yu Fenghua screamed. Her eyes were red. Yu Jingtian was her brother, the peerless genius of the younger generation of the Yu clan. He had the potential to inherit the position of the clan master in the future. Kong Tiju, calm down. If you let Yu Jingtian go now, we might still have a chance to make peace. Jiang Feibai's attitude changed. He guided Jiang Tian patiently, trying to break down Jiang Tian's killing intent. Yes, we can do as you wish. We can form a mythological alliance and work together to revive the spiritual qi. We will be in charge of Wuxia and you will be in charge of overseas. Jimai also gave in. After all, Yu Jingtian's life was in the hands of others. Yin Chaoge threatened, don't worry. You killed Yu Jingtian. You are an enemy of the Preqing clans. Aren't you afraid of our revenge? Do you really think that I need your help and support to form a mythological alliance? A trace of mockery appeared on Zhang Tian's face. He smiled coldly and said, who can stop me from recovering my spiritual energy alone? I'm just being kind. I want to leave some seeds for the Preqing Qi practitioners. After all, I will leave in the future. But now you have only yourself to blame. Why should I be merciful? Revenge? How are you going to take revenge on me? Just a few fake Dan weaklings like you? Are you kidding me? Kill him. Yes, master. Patriarch True Dragon sneered and reached out his hand. The Jiao dragon grabbed Yu Jingtian and the bronze cauldron in its hand and stuffed them into its mouth without hesitation. It began to chew and devour. Blood spurted out from the corner of its mouth. Blood, flesh and broken bones fell from the sky. Even the core embryo and divine soul were devoured. Then the ancestor withdrew his Dharma idol and bent his back again. He lowered his eyes and stood behind Jiang Tian obediently with his hands behind his back, resuming the image of an old servant. The entire place was silent. The hundreds of thousands of people, including the Preqing clans and the traitorous reclusive royalty, did not dare to speak. Chapter 1240. Kong Teichu had never shown up in public before. Once he showed up, he was merciless and ruthless. He ordered his old servant to eat the leader of the younger generation like a bug. Meanwhile, Jimai, Yin Chaoge, Jiang Feibai and Yu Fenghua were all dumbfounded. Their faces paled and they could not believe what they had just seen. Behind the many famous sects, there were hundreds of people. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. They trembled and retreated as if they had seen a demon. Jiang Tian actually dared to kill. Moreover, his method of killing was so cruel. He directly ate him. As for the onlookers, all of their hair stood on end. Shi Meiwan was so scared that she had a heart attack. She fell to the ground and frothed at the mouth. Then she convulsed and died. The 1,000-meter-tall Dharma power with the head of a human and the body of a dragon was already so terrifying that it almost made her heart explode. Even the iconic Oriental Pearl Tower in Zhonghai was less than 500 meters tall. Even the tallest building in the world, the King of Saudi Arabia, was only 107 meters tall. The Dharma power of the true dragon ancestral patriarch was even scarier than the monster Tesla in the movies. More importantly, it was not a movie special effect. It was a living creature that would cause phobia. When it started eating people, it was even more terrifying. The psychological impact was unimaginable. Who could withstand it? As for those who had not fainted, they were completely dumbfounded. The ending was too shocking. Originally, most of them thought that in terms of background and strength, the Preqing dynasty's famous clans were superior to Jiang Tian. A small portion of them thought that since Jiang Tian was famous and had a glorious battle record, Yu Jingtian and Jiang Tian should be on par with each other. However, no one had expected that Jiang Tian did not even make a move. One of his old servants used his dharma power to crush Yu Jingtian and eat him alive. At that moment, not only were the hundreds of thousands of people at the scene trembling in fear, but also in shock. In fact, the scene had been broadcasted to every corner of the world. It made billions of people tremble in fear. Many children's parents and teachers were ordered not to watch, so as not to leave a serious psychological shadow. After all, Kang Taichu is a meticulous person. When it comes to the future and fate of Earth, he has maintained his respect for the various forces. He hopes that everyone can unite and work together to plant the eternal foundation for Earth. Chao Shixiang shook his head and sneered. But some people think that his respect and tolerance are easy to bully. What I don't know is that if Kang Taichu were to make a move, would you even have the slightest chance to resist? In the depths of the Kunlun sect, Li Wuji, who was watching this through the video, shook his head and chuckled mockingly. These famous preaching sects are really arrogant and don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They think that they have a chance to challenge Demon King Jiang just because they are from the orthodox Xianmen sect. How could I have forgotten that this peerless, ferocious figure swept through the 3 dimensions and was invincible? How could he be easily bullied? Ever since the annihilation of the Holy See and the Brahman, Master has not attacked any forces on Earth in the past 2 years. Many people have forgotten about him or thought that he was past his prime. Shen Mange, who was recuperating in Shenong School, also watched this shocking scene through the live broadcast. She shook her head and chuckled. But in fact, Kang Taichu is still Kang Taichu. He is still the most powerful man on Earth. He is still as domineering and powerful as ever. He is still an existence that no one dares to provoke. Invincible. At this moment, the disciples of Tianqing School all over the country and the world were elated and exhilarated. My cousin is so powerful. I'm afraid that the crisis of the Zhang family will be resolved in minutes. Far away in Yanjing, Zhang Yilin, who was watching my live broadcast at the headquarters, was very excited. This time she was responsible for the live broadcast of this competition and the gift gambling. She had made a lot of money watching my live broadcast. Moreover, she had bet all her assets on the gambling. This time her assets would be multiplied several times. Next to her, Zhang Jinghua said proudly, "Alas, my grandson is so amazing. So what if he is a descendant of a famous preaching family? He is still so weak. Fortunately, we persevered until the end, otherwise." In the valley of Mount Amei, Yi Karen glanced at the crowd and sneered, "Ji Mingchuan Zhu Shaochen Li Kuangkol Yue, do you think that I will regret it? Do you think that I am blind?" Lady Wu also sneered and said disdainfully, "This is what you call an orthodox Xianmen? This is what you call a famous preaching family? Unshakable and powerful? What happened in the end?" Faced with this question, Ji Mingchuan and the others couldn't say a word. They were already scared out of their wits and were dumbfounded. "Kang Taichu, how dare you kill a descendant of the Yu family?" Yu Fenghua's pretty face was distorted and looked somewhat ferocious. Her eyes were as cold as knives and she shouted angrily, "I swear that you will not walk out of this valley today. My Yu family will not rest until you are dead." The old monk of Huangjue Temple shook his head with a bitter smile and said regretfully, "Benefactor Grand Primordium's killing intent is too strong. It was a conflict of interest earlier, but now it is a vendetta of life and death." Jiang Tian, who was the center of attention, looked at Yu Fenghua in disdain. "You can't even defeat my disciple. What right do you have to fight me to the death? If you want revenge, I'm right here. Go ahead." Yu Fenghua was so frightened that her face turned pale. She retreated and trembled all over. Although she hated Jiang Tian, she didn't dare to attack him. After all, the true dragon patriarch behind Jiang Tian was too terrifying. "I naturally have my reasons for reviving spirit qi. I've already said that whoever stops me will die." Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered with her. He sneered with a calm expression. "You are really ignorant. The ruins of immortality is no longer the territory of Xing Emperor Zhongli. Xing Emperor and Ao Emperor have become history, a thing of the past. The Ruins Emperor is now in charge, and the Ruins Emperor is the invader of the Southern Gate Twin Stars. In short, the Ruins of Immortality is not our ally, not our ancient race but our enemy. 10,000 years ago the Ruins Emperor took over the deity ground and turned it into ruins. So far, the Ruins Emperor has taken over many dimensional worlds, including the Star World. He is only a short distance away from Earth and could invade at any time. My old servant is the ruler of the Dragon Gate world. But the Dragon Gate world is only a level 3 dimensional world. There's still a huge gap between it and the Ruins of Immortality and the level 2 dimensional world. Do you think the technology and civilization on Earth can resist the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality? If it weren't for the revival of spirit chi, would we have a chance of survival? Once that was said, everyone went silent. Everyone couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. What he said was very different from what the famous sects of the Qin dynasty had said. You're trying to mislead people with your lies. What evidence do you have? Yu Fenghua was not convinced at all and snorted. You don't believe me? But I can show you what it's like when the Dragon Gate world is invaded. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon smiled bitterly and took out a disc-shaped Dharma artifact. This is a scene from 10,000 years ago. I didn't experience it myself. This Dharma plate was passed down from an overlord of the Flood Dragon race, Longbeard. When I was born, the Dragon Gate world had already been occupied for thousands of years and had entered a period of stable rule. I just didn't want to be the Ruins Emperor's slave, so I followed Kong Teichu. He made a hand seal. The disc-shaped Dharma artifact immediately shone and shot into the sky. Suddenly, images formed by light and shadow formed in the void. They were as lifelike as a 3D movie with naked eyes, and every detail could be seen. Kill. The sounds of battle, explosions, screams, and whistles were extremely complex and shook the heavens and the earth. In the Dragon Gate world, altar-like teleportation arrays were activated. Countless experts from the Ruins of Immortality rushed out at a speed faster than the speed of sound. They streaked across the sky and attacked madly. They were so powerful that every move they made could destroy the world. Their attacks were comparable to nuclear weapons, shattering mountains and turning giant cities into dust. The flames of war continued, smoke billowed and blood flowed. The land within 10,000 miles was scorched and broken bones were piled up like mountains. The cultivators who resisted fell to the ground like rain. The disc-shaped Dharma artifact in Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon's hand had complicated and ancient Tao patterns. It was a kind of Dharma plate that could imprint images into the Dharma artifact. It was even more realistic than a holographic projection. Then the image changed. It was a cruel, bloody, and inhumane massacre. In the Dragon Gate world, thousands of flood dragons were slaughtered by the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality. They were skinned, burned, and cut into pieces. On the ground, blood flowed like rivers. The corpses of the flood dragons were piled up like mountains. Palm-sized flies and mosquitoes licked the blood. Beasts with cold eyes ate the flesh of the corpses as if there was no one around. There were children standing among the corpses, shaking their mothers' corpses and crying helplessly. Male warriors in armor, with broken limbs and guts, crawled on the ground, moaning in pain and despair. Old people knelt on the ground, begging for mercy pitifully. Those who don't submit to the Southern Gate Twin Stars and His Majesty, the Ruins Emperor, will be killed without mercy. Kill. The Flood Dragons are the remnants of the Qing Emperor and the descendants of the Ao Emperor. We must eliminate them completely. The Ruins Emperor has decreed that the Great Ruins of Immortality's Co-Prosperity Army will occupy all the dimensions and besiege Earth. We will wait for Star Destroyer to appear and Spirit Chi to recover. We will conquer, enslave, and take everything. We will make Earth the most beautiful home of the Ruins of Immortality, our new home. However, the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality were still laughing like demons. They attacked mercilessly, killing thousands with a single palm strike. Chapter 1241. Finally, the chaotic scenes of battles and massacres disappeared. An old man with a long beard and towering horns on his head sat cross-legged in the dim cave. He was covered in wounds and dripping with blood. He was on the verge of death. He said weakly, "I am Longbeard, the commander of the Sky Wolf Battalion of the Dragon Gate World's Cultivator Army in the third-class dimension during Ao Huang's era. I represent the Dragon Gate World to warn all the other dimensions that the deity ground has changed. Ao Huang has been killed and the Ruins Emperor is in power. At this moment, the Ruins Emperor's invasion army has reached the Dragon Gate World. This place has been lost." He used all his strength to shout. All interstellar wanderers in the fourth-class dimensions under the Dragon Gate such as Heavenly Star, Chia Kanglin, and all the other dimensions remember this. The Southern Gate twin stars are not friends. The ruins of immortality is not your home. Immediately cut off the ancient astral path, destroy all teleportation arrays, stop the world's propulsion system, close the sealed spatial barrier. Do not advance. Do not advance. He had not finished his sentence. Suddenly, a sharp cold light flashed and blood spurted out like a fountain. He was split into two and fell to the ground. The scene gradually faded into nothingness. There was dead silence. Patriarch True Dragon put away the imprint disc array and smiled bitterly with a sorrowful expression. Unfortunately, his imprint disc array did not succeed in spreading. He was killed by the ruins of immortality experts. Therefore, the fourth-class dimensions closest to Earth have been occupied by the ruins Emperor. There were hundreds of millions of flood dragons in the Dragon Gate world. After that battle there were only a few million left. If not for the ruins Emperor needing to rebuild the Dragon Gate, I think he would not have left those few million people behind. His eyes were filled with tears as he shouted loudly. If you do not want Earth to be occupied like the Dragon Gate, if you do not want your children's parents to be slaughtered, your women to be defiled and your men to be slaves, then give up all your fantasies. Awaken your spirit chi and pick up your weapons to fight. The ruins Emperor is not a good person. The ruins of immortality is not heaven or home. So we have been bewitched. The crowd was dead silent. After a long time, many people gradually came to a realization. It turned out that it was not Jiang Tian who provoked the stellar sky domain, which led to the invasion of the dimensions. The ruins Emperor's strategy of occupying Earth had been going on for 10,000 years. The flames of war had reached their doorstep. Behind us is our home. We have nowhere to go. Now I'm going to revive the spirit chi. Does anyone have any objections? Jiang Tian asked coldly. There was dead silence. Even the famous preaching sects and the old monk of Huangjue Temple were dumbfounded and speechless. At this time, all the people around the world who were paying attention to this event took out their phones and solemnly cast their sacred votes in the poll. I support the recovery of spiritual power. The true Dragon Patriarch was only a powerhouse from a third-level world, but he still had the power to destroy cities and mountains. If the experts from the ruins of immortality were to attack, what a tragic scene it would be. Earth would probably be completely occupied in a few days or even a few hours. The revival of spiritual energy, the great changes in the world, and the breeding of demonic beasts was indeed very terrifying. It was an unprecedented challenge for mankind. But at least there was still a chance of survival. That was still better than being invaded and occupied by the experts of the ruins of immortality, enslaving all the humans in the world and exterminating them. The number of supporters continued to rise. In the end, almost 6 billion people all over the world supported Jiang Tian's recovery of spiritual energy. Reclusive royalty and preaching sects even secretly took out their phones and pressed the button to support. However, Yin Chaoge was still a bit unconvinced. He didn't discuss whether he should recover spiritual energy or not. He sneered and said, "That's right. This senior is indeed powerful, but the Tianqing school might not be as powerful as the preaching sections. For example, your 2 disciples might not be as powerful as me. Besides, our seniors are even more terrifying. You can't put the fate of mankind in the hands of Kong Teichu just because he defeated you Jing Tian, right? Who knows what you'll do during the recovery of spiritual energy. You know, absolute power breeds absolute corruption. Oh? Looks like you support the recovery of spiritual energy, but you don't want me to be the leader of the Mythos Alliance." Jiang Tian turned around and looked at him a bit surprised. "That's right." Yin Chaoge stepped forward with an arrogant look in his eyes. "Very well, let me see what you're capable of." Situ Shao carried a long sword on his back and took a step forward, his gaze cold. "You asked him to do it?" Yin Chaoge questioned. "That's right," Jiang Tian said calmly. "If any of you can defeat any of my disciples today, you'll be the leader of the Mythos Alliance. Senior Taichu, this is a serious matter. It's better to be careful." Chao Jinjia was startled and stepped forward to persuade him. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Even Chao Shixiang's face became serious. Jiang Tian and the true dragon ancestral patriarch might be powerful, but how could they guarantee that every one of their disciples would be stronger than the descendants of the preaching sects? Wasn't this a little too careless? After all, they were from the Orthodox Qi refinement sect, the Orthodox Qi refinement sect. That was the origin of all cultivation techniques in Wuxia. All the cultivation techniques in the world originated from the Pre-Qing dynasty. Situ Shao was from Qingqing, but how could the Qingqing flying sword compare to the cultivation techniques of the Pre-Qing dynasty? Taichu controls the 3 realms and is the dominator of the 3 realms. You have to keep your word. How can you go back on your words? Yu Fenghua was afraid that Jiang Tian would go back on his word. I won't go back on my word. Because you can't win. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unhurried as he spoke slowly. Very well. Situ Shao, the founder of the Hong sect and the #1 swordsman in the late Qing dynasty, may be very powerful in your eyes, but in my eyes he is just SOSO. He is barely worthy of me using 30% of my strength. Xianxia said disdainfully. The true dragon ancestral patriarch was powerful and had hidden his power well, but he came from another dimension, so it was normal that they had underestimated him. However, the rest of Jiang Tian's subordinates, including Huang Linger, were only at the false core level and had almost been killed by them. Besides, they had held back their strength to force Jiang Tian to come out. And Situ Zhao's power was even lower. Xianxia thought to himself. If he disregarded everything and unleashed his full strength, relying on the cultivation method passed down from the investiture of the gods era, even if Situ Shao was also a false core cultivator, he wouldn't be afraid. However, Xianxia knew that even an eagle would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Even though he didn't care about Situ Shao, he didn't show any mercy. Deity Trap Array, the blessing of the ancient entities, come. Xianxia's eyes shone with a strange light as he performed the dipper steps, muttered some words and made a spell. The golden dragon scissors turned into 2 dragons and whizzed out. The violent energy covered an area of a few kilometers and intertwined with each other. The energy was several times stronger than before. Xianxia believed that his full-strength attack could crush a mountain and a warship. Break. When Situ Shao unsheathed his sword, everyone felt that the temperature in a 10-mile radius had dropped by more than 10 degrees. It seemed to have turned from a hot summer to a cold winter. Countless ice crystals and snowflakes were formed where the sword was thrust out. What was even more chilling was that after the sword was slashed out, it formed a stream of sword qi that resembled a rainbow. Yu Fenghua swore that she had never seen such a powerful sword qi in her life, not even in the famous sects of the Pre-Qing dynasty. The scene of ice covering 10 miles and snow falling in June was just a drop in the ocean for the sword qi that had leaked out. Even more sword qi, sword intent, and cold killing intent were condensed within the sword qi that was like a waterfall. Arg. Xianxia was alarmed and exclaimed. He wanted to use the dragons to kill the sword qi, but it was too late. The sword aura that looked like a rainbow pierced through the dragon at an unbelievable angle, shattering the defense light shields of the magical equipment and piercing through Xianxia's abdomen, before it shot out of his back in a bloody dance and shattered a mountain hundreds of meters high behind him. Fush. Situ Shao withdrew his sword qi. The sword aura was absorbed into the sword. It came like a thunderbolt and disappeared like a river. Damn it, I've been hit. Xianxia paused and the corner of his eyes twitched in astonishment. He looked down. There was a bloody hole in his dantian. Through the hole he could see everyone's shock and sympathy. Xianxia was defeated with one slash. His fake core was broken, his dantian was severely damaged and he lost all his cultivation. What kind of sword technique was that? He broke the golden dragon scissors and cut Xianxia's golden core. Everyone looked at Situ Shao with awe-inspiring gazes. After Situ Shao withdrew his sword, he was still standing with the sword on his back. He was wearing a blue robe and had a jade hairpin in his Taoist bun. He was as handsome as a scholar in the Qing dynasty. Arg. Why did the Dharma power of the immortal trap array suddenly stop? Xianxia screamed and vomited blood. He turned around and ran, wanting to go back to his family and heal his body. But after a few hundred meters he fell to the ground and didn't move anymore. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Even the Lord of Yin Ruins, Yin Haojia, might not be able to resist such a terrifying slash. He's also a fake core cultivator. Everyone was shocked. Even Yu Fenghua was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. In fact, she was going crazy. How could Kong Teichu's subordinate be so powerful? Was the fake core cultivator's strength standard? Everyone was stunned by Situ Zhao's slash. Only Jiang Tian shook his head and chuckled. Xianxia had thought that he was a pushover, but he had found the wrong person. This was an important place where the array was installed, so Situ Xiao didn't use his full strength. But in fact his 5-element sky-seizing sword technique had reached the phenomenal success level and his cultivation level had reached the fake core level, which was on par with Xianxia. In fact, in terms of the level of cultivation techniques, Situ Xiao's sword technique was even more profound than Patriarch True Dragon's. The 5-element sky-seizing sword technique was obtained from Sword Tomb Island and came from the outer sect Elder of Heavenly Court sect, Immortal 9 Swords. According to Patriarch True Dragon and the others, Heavenly Court sect was a remnant faction of the ancient heavenly courts of the Shang and Ao emperors after they were defeated by the Ruins Emperor. Perhaps Heavenly Court sect had already been suppressed by the Ruins Emperor and was even reduced to a slave. It was in a precarious state and could no longer be considered as a top faction. However, its cultivation technique came from the era of the Shang Emperor and was rather complete. Furthermore, as Jiang Tian's right-hand man and protector, Situ Xiao was highly valued by Jiang Tian. Later on, Jiang Tian had even modified the cultivation technique a few times to elevate it to the limit. It was already a quasi-emperor sword technique. Xianxia's dermic formulation came from some mighty figure of the age of the gods, but it was already incomplete. Most importantly, Jiang Tian had just used a secret technique to sever the connection between the golden W-arm scissors and the immortal trap formation. The dermic powers of the immortal trap formation were not injected at all. With that, there was no way Xianxia could defeat Situ Xiao. That sword technique is practically unparalleled. Are all of Kong Teichu's disciples this terrifying? At that moment, the expressions of countless preaching sects changed and their hearts shuddered in fear. Chapter 1242. This sword technique is amazing. Even the true dragon patriarch had a whole new level of respect for Jiang Tian, his heart burning with passion. Old ancestor True Dragon's experience far surpassed everyone else's. He could see that Situ Xiao's sword contained the laws of the Great Tao. It was definitely a deity transformation level cultivation method. Even if he obtained it in the ruins of immortality, he would be able to shock everyone and establish his own sect. But for the Lord to casually pass down such a cultivation method to a disciple, the Lord's foundation was simply too solid. Does anyone else want to challenge me? Jiang Tian chuckled. I'd like to see the peerless art of Tianqing's school. A powerful cultivator from the preaching clan walked out aggressively, wanting to challenge Huang Ling to redeem himself. After all, Huang Linger had just been through a series of battles and she seemed to be exhausted. However, he was still defeated by Huang Linger's Yi-Wood Dharma form and fell to the ground like a dead dog. In the end, one of Yu Jingtian's cousins, Yu Tianan, a peak stage foundation establishment cultivator, stepped forward and yelled, "I want to challenge." He waved his hand and pointed at the black dog in Old Dragon's arms. "I want to challenge this black dog." At this moment, the hundreds of thousands of people present and the hundreds of millions of people in front of their screens almost vomited blood. Even Yu Fenghua frowned and pulled a long face. What a disgrace to his grandmother's house. You're a disciple of the Preaching dynasty. How dare you challenge a dog of Tianqing school? So what if you win? What are you laughing at? This dog is powerful. It's obviously a prehistoric beast. What's wrong with me challenging it? Even if I win, it still counts. Yu Tianan shouted anxiously. No one was willing to give him a way out, so he had to find a way out. You can see that I, Lao Hei, am not ordinary. You have good eyes. Why don't I take you as my pet and you can serve me well? The black dog, who was dozing off, suddenly became excited. It jumped out of ancestral patriarch True Dragon's arms and landed on the ground. It's a beast. Can even talk. Could it be the legendary black dog spirit? Seeing this, Yu Tianan was shocked. He couldn't believe it. His face turned pale and he took a few steps back. He had only said that the large black dog was a primordial mutant beast to give himself a way out. Who would have thought that his luck would be so good, and he had even hit the nail on the head. How unlucky. Tianan, are you still going to back off? Yu Fenghua frowned and shouted. You don't even have the guts to challenge one of Kong Teichu's dogs. If this were to spread out, the Yu family's face would be completely lost. How could they fight for the position of Alliance Master? He was too embarrassed to fight for it. Yu Tianan calmed himself down. He knew that he had no choice but to fight this battle. Otherwise he would definitely be chased out of the family. It's just a black dog spirit. What's the big deal? I don't even know how many leopard and tiger demons I've killed. After Yu Tianen calmed himself down, his eyes filled with disdain. He was, after all, a powerful cultivator in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, surpassing the sky immortal realm. If he were to leave the mountain, he would be someone who could control a country or a sect. Since when could he be afraid of a black dog demon? Black dog, I'll kill you and make you into a hot pot. He pulled out an ancient bronze sword and furiously stabbed it toward the large black dog. Suddenly, the cold sword light illuminated the area within a mile. The sharp sword light shattered the ground and cut open huge rocks. Its power was extraordinary. You bastard, do you really think I'm a dog? However, the big black dog suddenly roared angrily and turned into a huge flood dragon about 100 feet long. Its mountain-like head was extremely terrifying. He opened his mouth and inhaled. Like a whale inhaling water, he sucked the sword-light sword chi and Yu Tianen into his mouth. Forget it, I'll just eat him. This guy is not obedient enough. I can't keep him as a human pet. The old dragon chewed loudly and swallowed Yu Tianen whole with a big spicy strip. He praised, "You're the best. It's so delicious. It's so delicious with a spicy strip. I, the old dragon, am a particular dragon." This time everyone was dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it and were completely speechless. They sadly realized that Kong Teichu's dog was a flood dragon and could crush a foundation establishment cultivator. Not many of them could beat it. How could they compare with it? Everyone was shocked. Many of the famous families in the preaching dynasty were completely speechless. They thought that Jiang Tian's words were harsh, but they didn't expect that Jiang Tian wasn't exaggerating at all. It was inferior to a dog. Although Jimai and the others could see that the big black dog looked like a dog, it was actually a flood dragon or even a high-level dragon. However, many people still couldn't accept it. Yu Fenghua was so angry that his injury was triggered and he vomited blood. They came in high spirits and said that they would destroy Tianqing School and trample on Jiang Tian, but the ending was so cruel. They were completely disgraced. They were trampled on by Jiang Tian and rubbed their faces on the ground. They would be too embarrassed to go out and meet people in the future. Oh my god. That's amazing. Chao Jinjiao widened her eyes and waved her fists excitedly. Chao Shixiang also looked a bit relieved. Jiang Tian was fierce and fierce. He could destroy countries and cities easily and he seemed to be reckless. In fact, he was extremely intelligent. He had thought things through carefully and his plans were far-reaching. He had been recruiting and training talents and building his own force. Tianqing School's rear was very stable. At the moment, Tianqing School had many immortal state warriors, mortal deities, earth deities and sky immortals. There were even many fake core overlords. They were full of talents. Even if Jiang Tian wasn't there, the result would be the same as long as the ancestral patriarch of the true dragon fought. This is like a myth. He's a real dragon. The billions of people in front of the screen were completely shocked. We've underestimated him. Then Jimai and the others smiled bitterly. They had completely lost hope. They thought that because of the deity trap array, Jiang Tian and the disciples of Tianqing School would be limited to the third level of the foundation establishment. They didn't expect that there were so many mid-stage and late-stage foundation establishment cultivators in Tianqing School. Even fake core cultivators were common. Even a dog was capable of crushing a foundation establishment cultivator. With such power, how could anyone survive? At the moment, although Jiang Tian didn't show his power, they also realized that Jiang Tian's strength was not simple, which made them even more afraid. At the moment they were a bit regretful. In fact, when Jiang Tian first proposed the Myth Alliance, he wanted the overseas forces and monsters to submit to him. He also wanted to establish a joint conference with the Preaching family and the Kunlun sect to participate in the Spirit Chi recovery plan on an equal footing. But now, after the Preaching family made such a fuss, how could Jiang Tian let them be on an equal footing? Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd and said with a slightly mocking smile, "Now, can you support my recovery of Spirit Chi? Are you willing to sign a contract with the Myth Alliance?" Jimai and Jiang Feibai lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak. They didn't even dare to look at Jiang Tian. Their faces were pale and their eyes were filled with struggle. "You want the Yu family to submit to you, Kong Teichu? You're dreaming." But Yu Fenghua's eyes were cold. He sneered and said fiercely, Jiang Tai, originally if you had stopped earlier and let my brother go, we could still have talked things over. However, you killed my brother. My Yu family will definitely not let this matter rest. We will fight you to the death and fight you to the death. Do you think you have the strength to challenge me? Jiang Tian smiled and said, in this world how many people are worthy of me, Kong Teichu? You're wrong. You're just ants that I can crush with a flick of my finger. Let me tell you, Kong Teichu. Yu Wenden, master of the Yu family, Yin Haojie, master of the Yin ruins, and Ji Shiqi, master of the Ji family, are all coming. They're on the way. Yu Fenghua's face was twisted and murderous. She said coldly, do you dare to wait for them to come? Do you dare to fight the leaders of the 4 major sects alone? Hearing this, Ji Mai was energized. He said in a low voice, we're just juniors. The real powerhouses are the leaders of the major sects. Kong Teichu, if you have the guts, wait for the leaders of the major sects to come. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. Call your parents if you can't beat them. Are you a 3-year-old kid? Jiang Tian sneered. He then smiled and said casually, you won't give up until the end. You guys won't give up until all hope is gone. Fine, fine. I'll give you a chance. Taichu sect master, you can't do that. Yingying Laozu, who had been silent for a long time, quickly stopped him. Chapter 1243. Obviously, even Yingying Laozu was quite wary of the masters of the famous sections. In fact, the famous sects of the Preaching dynasty had crushed the reclusive royalty. They were not restricted by the immortal trap array at all. Their cultivation was unfathomable, and they might have reached the Golden Core realm. Especially when the 4 masters of the famous sects came together with countless Preaching Dharma treasures. That was even more terrifying. There's nothing I can't do. Jiang Tian waved his hand indifferently, then glanced at the disciples of the famous sects of the Preaching dynasty and said unhurriedly, I thought that the chaos of the famous sects of the Preaching dynasty was caused by ignorant juniors like you. It seems that you have backing. Even his father and the head of the family were participating. Then fine, I'll eliminate them completely. I'll beat them until they kneel and beg for mercy. Benefactor Jiang, do you mean that you're going to do it yourself this time? The old monk of Huangjue Temple stepped forward and put his palms together. Yes. Jiang Tian stretched and said matter-of-factly, I've been in seclusion for too long. It's time for me to stretch my waist. Kong Teichu, I admit that you're very strong. We've all underestimated you. The old monk of Huangjue Temple smiled bitterly. But if you think you're a match for the masters of the famous sects, then you're too arrogant. To be honest, he thought that Jiang Tian's strength was indeed at the Foundation establishment realm, because his aura could not be faked. Moreover, it was Jiang Tian's disciple and old servant who attacked just now. It was very likely that Huang Linger had a special constitution to be able to break through the immortal trap array and reach such a cultivation level. But Jiang Tian's aura was that of an ordinary person, and he did not seem to have a special constitution. And the reason why the true dragon patriarch attacked for Jiang Tian was that he might not be a real servant. He might even be Jiang Tian's master. It was only to make Jiang Tian his representative and promote Jiang Tian that he was so pretentious. His speculation seemed to make sense. After all, the true dragon patriarch had wandered from the dimensional world and Jiang Tian was a human from Earth. It would be easier for the various factions to accept that he was in charge of Earth. Yi Hui also thought of this point and said in a mocking tone, Kong Teichu, it's only because your disciple's physique is special and your helper's strength is powerful that you can act like a tyrant. In terms of ability, how could he be a match for the descendants of the Preaching dynasty? The vastness of their divine abilities, the valiance of their strength, and the purity of their cultivation methods are something that you simply cannot compare to. Li Kuangkou also snorted coldly in agreement. Do it myself. It's precisely because he's relying on women and helpers that he's so domineering. He can't break through the confinement of heaven and earth. How can he be a match for the master of the Preaching dynasty? Reclusive royalty shook their heads and sighed. There's no need to say anything more. Jiang Tian glanced at them and said with a cold smile, that's right. Kong Teichu, just want you to see how weak the overlords you worship are in front of me. In an ancient mansion on the banks of the Sisui River, in the middle of a dimension array. The mansion was only a few hundred acres in size, but the spirit qi was as dense as clouds and mist. It was also very magical. When one walked to the edge, there was a layer of water curtain like a dimension barrier. One could see the flowing lights and distorted figures and scenery outside. It was a small grotto heaven. It was much smaller than the dimensional world, but the space was folded and ordinary people couldn't detect it. Kang Techu, you're so domineering that you even dare to kill the descendant of Emperor Yu. Today I'll fight you to the death. Suddenly, a furious roar exploded like a clap of thunder, causing the entire space to almost shatter into pieces. The roar was so terrifying that it broke through the barrier of the grotto heaven and went straight to the sky. Suddenly, the entire northeastern part of Wuxia was deeply shaken. Hundreds of millions of people heard it. Tens of thousands of people nearby were even knocked unconscious. The entire Sisui County shook a few times as if there was an earthquake. What's going on? The descendant of Emperor Yu is going to fight with Kang Techu. It must be. What's going on in the live broadcast room? Many people looked at their phones in shock and anticipation. The 9 giant cauldrons the size of small hills rushed out of the dimension array of the Yu family and rose thousands of meters into the sky. The giant bronze cauldrons with powerful auras flew in the direction of Mount Immerse like dragons. Kang Techu, I won't kill you today. I'll take your surname. An old man with an ancient appearance and a withered figure that seemed like an old farmer stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He was surrounded by 9 ancient cauldrons, and his eyes flickered with violent killing intent and monstrous hatred. Kill Kang Techu and avenge our young master. Behind him, the overlords of the Yu family rose into the sky like helicopters and followed the old man. Crack, crack. There was a sound like metal rubbing against each other. The ground shook and a giant black metal bear a few hundred meters tall broke out of the ground. There were flames under its feet and it carried the old man towards Mount Immerse. Boom. In the ancient ruins in Anyang, the land of the middle source. Rumble. An ancient bronze chariot rose into the air. A tall middle-aged man in a yellow robe with a golden whip in his hand sat on the chariot. He shouted angrily, "You're too weak." He shouted, "Kang Techu, you've gone too far. How dare you kill my son? Do you think the ancient ruins are easy to bully? Where's my army?" His voice shook 100 miles. Countless inscriptions in the ruins of deity were shattered and countless bells and cauldrons were ringing. With this roar, countless preaching qi cultivators leaped into the air from the surroundings of the ruins of immortality. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Kang Techu is still not convinced. Today we'll let him know the power of the preaching dynasty. Then in the west capital, the cave abodes of the Jiang family and the Ji family also emitted strange phenomena. Countless preaching qi refinement warriors rushed over. Tens of thousands of preaching dynasty troops formed a military formation and flew across the sky. The war chariots rumbled and moved extremely fast like supersonic fighter jets, leaving behind milky white air turbulence in the air. The army was neat and orderly with shining spears and armored horses. Cold light flickered and an iron-blooded killing aura filled the sky. Their imposing manner was like a rainbow, and it could be said to be world-shaking. The preaching dynasty army has reappeared. So shocking. That scene shocked everyone. The entire Wuxia was in an uproar. Hundreds of millions of people raised their heads to watch. They were dumbfounded and took photos and videos to upload. It only took them half an hour to cross 1,000 miles. They're almost as fast as a humanoid fighter jet. The preaching dynasty army is here. This time Kang Techu is probably going to lose. Seeing the preaching dynasty army flying over the valley, many people present were shocked. They were dumbfounded and shocked. When the preaching dynasty's famous sects had strange phenomena in their respective clans and dojos, someone took photos and posted them on the internet. In half an hour, the armies of the 4 famous sects of the preaching dynasty had arrived at the back of Mount Immerse, where the spirit guiding array was located. They were so fast that they had broken the sound barrier. How could it not shock people? How could it not attract attention? In the sky above the valley, the flag was fluttering in the wind. The soldiers were densely packed. Tens of thousands of soldiers were arranged in neat military formations. They were like a torrent of steel that could destroy everything. Their murderous aura was like a rainbow and their momentum was shocking. Upon closer inspection, the soldiers were clad in ancient armor, holding bronze halberds in their hands, long swords, quivers and short sabers hanging from their waists and bows on their backs. They stood upright and motionless, like statues from the Preaching dynasty. Their murderous aura and overlords filled the air, pushing out clouds. In an instant, the clouds within 100 miles disappeared and the sun shone brightly. Almost every one of these soldiers was a Qi refinement cultivator. Some of them were immortal state warriors and early-stage foundation establishment cultivators. If they weren't in hiding, any one of them could control a country or a sect in the mortal world and be on par with a general of a country. However, such overlords could only serve as soldiers of the famous sects of the Preaching dynasty. That was how powerful the famous sects of the Preaching dynasty were. Within the military formation, there were also batches of extremely rare draconic horses and qilins pulling numerous ancient bronze chariots and ancient formation chariots. The chariots were densely covered in Dao markings, and they seemed to be profound and obscure. They flickered with brilliance and emitted strong fluctuations of magic energy. If the onlookers weren't holding cameras, mobile phones, binoculars and wearing modern clothes, many people would have mistakenly thought that they had traveled back in time to the battlefield of the Preaching dynasty and arrived in the ancient times. At this time no one dared to speak or approach. They were so nervous that their bodies trembled. Even ordinary people could feel the chilling murderous aura. It was frightening. "Where is Kong Teichu?" When the voice was heard, there seemed to be a clap of thunder in the sky. The entire western part of Wuxia was shaken. Boom! Above Mount Immerse, within a radius of 100 miles, dark clouds gathered. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. On the ground, the towering and steep mountain trembled violently. Countless trees on the mountain snapped, rocks exploded and millstone-sized rocks rolled on the ground. Boom! Boom! Under everyone's shocked gaze, the sky trembled violently. Next to the white drake that pierced through the clouds, a giant metal bear that was hundreds of meters tall stepped through the void and walked out proudly. Chapter 1244. What the hell is that? Fuck, is that a preaching mecha? That's so interesting. Compared to a preaching mecha, Iron Man would be defeated anytime. Many people cried out in surprise when they saw this. They were in disbelief. This enormous bear was pitch black, and its entire body was forged from a strange black iron. Its figure was tall and heavy like a mountain, and its eyes were like gems that emitted rays of cold light. Its sharp claws were like cast from alloy, and its teeth were ghastly, causing it to be extremely terrifying. I heard that Yu the Great was mentally and physically exhausted when he tried to control the flood. The ancient deities gave him the ability to move mountains, cut open the earth and dredge rivers. Even the famous Xianyuan mountain was torn apart by the giant bear. Is this the giant black iron bear? Hu Qingtian's face was pale and he was shocked. The faces of the surrounding Tianqing sect disciples changed drastically. The story of Emperor Yu turning into a bear to control the flood was recorded in many ancient books such as Huainanzi. Many cultivators knew about it. Some people speculated that the black bear was the Dharma form of Yu the Great, or that Yu the Great was transformed by the black bear spirit. After all, it was an era where humans, monsters and deities coexisted. However, most people thought that these were just myths and legends. Now that they saw it, they knew that these myths were not completely fabricated. It's just a puppet beast. Why are you so scared? Jiang Tian looked at them with disdain. This was indeed a puppet beast. It was made of dark steel from the extreme north and had a reactor inside. It was powered by crystals and chalcedony and controlled by the soul of a black bear. Its lethality was comparable to that of a golden core cultivator. It could be considered extraordinary. However, Jiang Tian had made and killed countless puppet beasts like this in his previous life. He would not take it to heart. Yes, master. Hu Qingtian looked ashamed and quickly bowed. What was more eye-catching was that there was an old man with long gray hair standing on the shoulder of the giant black iron bear. The old man was wearing a hemp robe and straw sandals. He looked like an old farmer. He was already very old, but the boundless majesty and domineering aura of an emperor still swept over and suppressed him. The old man's figure was strong and healthy. His open chest revealed his bronze skin that seemed to be cast from metal. He was full of strength. What was even more frightening was that there were 9 small cauldrons revolving around him. Every small cauldron hung down and propped up the sky. The vast aura that crushed the earth made people not dare to underestimate them in the slightest. Greetings to the descendant of Emperor Yu of the Great Xia, the patriarch of the Yu clan. With the head of the prestigious Yu family here, why should we worry about not killing Kong Teichu? Seeing his arrival, the old monk of Huangjue Temple and the leaders of the reclusive royalty were relieved. They all lowered their heads respectfully to show their utmost respect. Greetings, master of the Preaching dynasty. Juniors such as Ji Mingchuan, Yi Hui, Zhu Xian, and Li Kuangkol knelt down and worshipped him. Their faces were filled with reverence and fear as if they had seen a real god. That was because this old man was the descendant of Yu the Great, the current patriarch of the Yu clan, Yu Wenden. In terms of seniority, status and strength, Yu Wenden was even higher than Li Wuji. It was said that he had once guided Li Wuji's cultivation and helped to repair the Tao of Kunlun. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Therefore, even the sect master of the Kunlun sect, Zhou Xian, had to be courteous and did not dare to offend him. Legend had it that the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies did not dare to disturb Wuxia before the Battle of Lansong River. It was Yu Wenden who said so. Even experts like Jia Yi did not dare to provoke him. However, he had always kept a low profile and lived in seclusion, so these powerful deeds were unknown. Of course, it could also be inferred that the Holy See, Brahmin, and the European reclusive royalty must have gotten his permission to attack Jiang Tian, or at least acquiesce to it. I didn't expect that the Preaching army would be on the move. I'm afraid it's hard to say who will win today. Yingying Laozu sighed. My friend, the Taichu should have captured those small fries first so that they would not dare to attack. Even though Chao Shixiang didn't say anything, there was a touch of fear and solemnity on his face. He clenched his fists again. He certainly knew what Yingying Laozu meant. Jiang Tian shouldn't have killed them. He should have captured them. If he killed them, it would be a matter of life and death. If he captured the disciples of the Preaching sect, he would have a bargaining chip. Why Yingzu? Could it be that Grand Primordium's cultivation was inferior to theirs? Or is it because they have more people? Chao Jinjia asked. There's a secret that many people don't know. Even the Preaching sects have never talked about it. Yingying Laozu's face became unprecedentedly solemn. He spoke to everyone with his soul energy. It said that the Preaching sects weren't simply exempted from the suppression and restraint of the deity trap array. Instead, they could be strengthened by the deity trap array. Especially the 9 cauldrons of the Yu family. Once they're activated, they can trigger the deity tribulation and divine punishment of the deity trap array. They can destroy and kill everything, and their power will increase tenfold. So, in the past dynasties, there's a saying that the emperor's family who has the 9 cauldrons will rule the world. That's why all the dynasties, including the Yinshang and the Great Zhou dynasty, wanted to fight for the 9 cauldrons. There are so many powerful treasures in the War of Gods. But the Yinshang and the Great Zhou dynasty still want the 9 cauldrons. That's how terrifying the 9 cauldrons are. I've heard of these rumors, but I wasn't sure. But after seeing the power of their Dharma treasures today, I'm sure. At this moment he kept shaking his head in regret. Although the information was not accurate, he should have informed Jiang Tian immediately so that Jiang Tian could be prepared. But now Jiang Tian was completely caught off guard. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's hearts skipped a beat. They fell straight into an abyss and their faces turned ghastly pale. Not only were the Preaching sects not restricted by the deity trap array, but they were also strengthened by the deity trap array. This was a huge cheat. Kong Teichu, come out and face your death. Yu Wenden glanced at the bloodstains left behind by Yu Jingtian. His eyes were filled with regret. But he was still a tyrant and the leader of a preeminent sect. Soon his regret turned into anger. He glared at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily. Kong Teichu, how dare you kill the descendant of the Preaching sects? Today, I'm afraid the Preaching sects will not rest until you're dead. Not rest until you're dead. Facing the pressure of a large army, Jiang Tian's expression was relaxed. If you want to fight with me, that's fine too. I'll slaughter your Preaching army and massacre all the preeminent sects. How arrogant! How arrogant! This old man knows that you, Jiang Taichu, have shocking strength, are arrogant, consider everything beneath your notice and are unruly. Moreover, you are ferocious and your hands are stained with blood. You will annihilate entire families, armies and countries at the slightest provocation. If this old man wasn't completely confident, do you think this old man would act rashly, even if it was to avenge the death of my son? Yu Wendon was so angry that he laughed. Kong Teichu, how dare you kill my son Yin Zhaoga? Do you think the Yin ruins is a pushover? Yin Haojia waved his hand and the 7 fragrances carriage flew over. He held the array disc in his hand and pressed it with his fingers. Behind him, a huge array chariot burst out with bright light. The many rays of light formed the illusion of a great river that was a few miles long. The chilly wind blew and the turbid waves surged into the sky. There were white bones floating up and down, turtles, flood dragons and water monsters swimming around. The river had 9 bends and 18 bends as it floated in the sky. 9 Yellow River Formation. In the distance, Heavenly Yi stepped in the air and shot over like a long rainbow. He said with a shocked expression, "You're too weak." He said with shock. Rumor has it that the 3 sky fairies set up this formation in Shichi with the primeval dipper. Together with the primeval dipper, they defeated many of Xianxia's armies and captured 12 famous masters of the clan of enlightenment in the Battle of God's Investiture. They cut off the 3 flowers on their heads and destroyed the 5 qi in their bodies, making them useless. I didn't expect to see it again today. Yeah, with this formation and many Dharma treasures from the preaching era, Kong Teichu is really in danger. Zhou Xian followed closely behind him and shook his head with a wry smile. He wore a lotus Taoist crown and an 8 trigrams Taoist robe with a silk belt around his waist. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and wore a loose robe with big sleeves. He looked handsome and sage-like. Brother Muxian, how can you destroy the prestige of Tianqing School and boost the spirit of others? Hearing this, a trace of anger appeared on Heavenly Ye's face and he said coldly, "My master once swept through 3-dimensional worlds and was invincible. Do you think he's afraid of the preaching era? Today I asked you to mediate because my master doesn't want to kill more people." Zhou Xian laughed and said sarcastically, "The preaching era also has their own reliance. It's not as simple as you think. In my opinion, Taichu only has a 10% chance of winning and the chance of survival is extremely slim. If you want to determine the winner in the battle between the strong, it must be a life and death battle. Let's not talk about who's weak and who's strong for now." Heavenly Yi sped up and flew 10 miles in a second. He said to Li Mu through his divine sense. But whether it's the Tianqing school or the preaching era, they're all descendants of the Yen Emperor and the Yellow Emperor. The ruins of immortality is right in front of us. Why should we argue about the origin of the orthodoxy and who's strong and who's weak? We should fight together and defend the ruins of immortality. Brother Muxian, you must mediate today no matter what. In fact, Zhou Xian injured Yi Zhantian and destroyed his cultivation. It was already an unforgivable crime and he almost had a death feud with the Yi family. However, in order to protect the roots of the preaching era and unite the strongest people, Yi Tianren still took the overall situation into consideration and disregarded the former enmity. He asked him to mediate. One had to know that Zhou Xian was a descendant of the Great Zhou's Ji family and was related to the Great Zhou's famous Ji family by blood. In addition, the ancestor of the Great Zhou's Jiang family, Xianxia, had also studied in the Kunlun Jade Mirage Palace and had a deep relationship with the Kunlun sect. Chapter 1245. Above the valley, the 9 bends Yellow River array reappeared in the world. Many people recognized this formation as well, and they couldn't help but shudder with fear and extreme shock. Chao Jinjia was so shocked that her entire body trembled. This was a terrifying array that could even trap the 12 golden immortals of the Chan school. How could Kong Teichu resist it? Facing the monstrous power of this array, Jiang Tian was calm and composed. He smiled lazily and said, "It's not enough. You want to kill me with this crude array? Dream on." Yin Haojia was furious. His eyes were sinister and resentful, but he did not say a word. At this moment, the head of the famous Ji family, Ji Shichi, stepped out with the 64 trigrams in his hand. He bowed and said, "The head of the Ji family, Ji Shichi, greets fellow Taoist Tai Chu. I'm willing to discuss yin and yang with fellow Taoist Tai Chu." He had a dignified appearance and a noble and graceful aura. He was like an emperor. His speech and actions were neither warm nor angry. He was neutral and peaceful and he looked very sincere. However, although his words were reserved, his meaning was self-evident. He wanted to stand on the side of the Yu family and fight to the death with Jiang Tian. "Sai, I didn't expect you to come too." Jiang Tian sighed softly and said with a smile, "Your distant ancestor King Wen of Zhou Jichong is known as 7 years of hardship in Yuli City." The lines of the trigrams changed one by one. He understood the mysteries of the heavens and left his name as the Great Sage. He performed the Book of Changes and created the 6 signs observation method. He could distinguish the heavenly Tao and deduce all things. He knew how to use people well, and he knew the past, present, and future. Why don't you seek fortune and avoid disaster? Why do you have to court death? My Ji family follows nature and insists on the path of the middle. Fellow Taoist Tai Chu, on the other hand, is extreme in his actions. He kills without restraint and goes against the heavens. Ji Shiqi looked at Jiang Tian and said sincerely, "Reviving spiritual energy is even more against the heavens. Such a change in the laws of heaven and earth. I'm afraid you will be punished by the heavens and will not have a good ending." "Aha, I thought that you would be a hero since you are the descendant of King Wen. Today I see that you are just a mediocre person. What a pity." Jiang Tian laughed and shook his head. Reviving spiritual energy is going against the heavens? Whether it was the destruction of the stars or the great immortal trap formation's confinement of heaven and earth, they weren't created by the heavens but by humans. What couldn't be changed? As the saying goes, keep up with the times. Things change when the world changes. The general situation of the world has already changed. Why can't we tear apart the great immortal trap formation, defeat planet extermination, and revive the spiritual energy? Ji Shiqi smiled calmly and did not refute. Instead, he looked at the person behind him and said with a faint smile, "This is Jiang Zia's descendant, the current Jiang family's patriarch, Jiang Fisherman." Jiang Baowing held the deity striking whip in one hand and rode on the dear god's Davids. His apricot yellow Taoist robe fluttered without wind, and it fluttered like a flag. His hair was tied into a Taoist bun, and he was handsome like an expert that had attained the Tao. "Greetings, fellow cultivator Grand Primordium." Hearing this, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he nodded at Jiang Tian. Good. Yu Wendan, Yin Haojie, Ji Shiqi, and Jiang Yaowing, the leaders of the 4 great sects of the Preaching Dynasty, I am honored to have you here." Jiang Tian chuckled. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with murderous intent as he said coldly, "Since I have already said all the good things, you still insist on obstructing my grand plan of spiritual qi recovery. Since we each have our own opinions and no one can convince the other, then let's have a big battle to determine the winner and loser. How about it?" "Good. Kong Teichu, you are indeed fierce, headstrong, stubborn, and unrepentant. Since that's the case, let's see who's the real deal." Yin Haojie could no longer hold back. With a roar, he was about to drive the 7 fragrances chariot toward Jiang Tian. Kill. Suddenly, tens of thousands of preaching soldiers roared angrily. Their angry roars soared into the sky, and violent murderous intent spread in all directions, shaking the mountains. The scene that was already in a state of confrontation was filled with an extremely horrifying and murderous aura, and it caused everyone to find it difficult to breathe and shudder with fear. Just as everyone was trembling in fear and the war was about to break out, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly a voice sounded. "Why don't you give me face and stop for the time being? Old man, I still have a few words to say." It was Ji Muxian who floated down. Yi Tianren also landed behind Jiang Tian and said softly, "Master, Ji Muxian is here. We can still negotiate today. Why don't we shake hands and make peace?" "Shake hands and make peace?" Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows. Jiang Tian wanted to shake hands and make peace with the descendants of a few famous preaching sects? Yes, Jiang Tian previously had the idea of joining forces with them to form a mythical alliance and defend the ruins of immortality together. But that was not because Jiang Tian wanted their help and support. It was because sooner or later Jiang Tian would step on the ancient path of the stars to enter the central galaxy and leave Earth. Therefore he wanted to leave a prosperous cultivation civilization for Wuxia and leave some seedlings for the preaching qi refinement cultivators. But these days, Jiang Tian had fully realized that this group of famous preaching sects coveted comfort and did not know how to make progress. Moreover, they were extremely selfish. In order to protect their status, they did not hesitate to distort the truth and use the people's desire for peace to slander him. Moreover, they had already attacked him and bullied him and injured his disciples. If he did not take revenge and beat them until they knelt and surrendered, how could he, Kong Teichu, still have the face to be respected when he ascended the central galaxy and the immortal world in the future? Yi Tianren did things according to Jiang Tian's established strategy, but he did not know that the situation had changed. Jiang Tian already had the intention to kill. That's right, Taichu, you can only shake hands and make peace. Otherwise, you will definitely lose today. Ji Muxin walked to Jiang Tian and bowed. Then he straightened his back and shook his head with a bitter smile. Hearing that, Yi Tianren frowned and was annoyed. What was wrong with Ji Muxin? He obviously did not sit straight. Jiang Tian looked at Ji Muxin calmly and chuckled. You said that I will definitely lose before we even fight? Are the famous preaching sects so terrifying and powerful in your eyes? Do we still need to fight? If we do, you will die an unnatural death today. Ji Muxin snorted proudly. As the sect leader of the Kunlun sect, he knew too many secrets and inside stories. He also knew too much about the famous preaching sections. Could be said that he was confident that he would not be wrong. Therefore his attitude was very firm. Interesting. Jiang Tian frowned and muttered to himself. He smiled but did not say anything. Suddenly he understood something. A trace of coldness and killing intent flashed in his eyes. Today, Li Wuji did not let Ji Muxin come but let Yi Karen come to persuade the famous preaching sections. It was very thought-provoking. It seemed that this old thief had abandoned this stubborn Ji Muxin who had a grudge against him. In the future, Yi Karen would probably be the sect leader of the Kunlun sect. This was also in line with Li Wuji's style of doing things. This old thief's calculations were extremely shrewd. In the West Earth, Yi Karen had received his guidance several times. The Yi clan also had a deep relationship with him. If she became the sect leader, he would support her and the Kunlun sect more. It would be better than Ji Muxin. Not only did Ji Muxin have a grudge against him, but he was also a descendant of the great Zhou dynasty's famous Ji clan. He had even injured Yi Zhantian. Indeed, he had also made up his mind to deal with Ji Muxin. Seeing that Jiang Tian was silent, Ji Muxin thought that he had persuaded Jiang Tian. He stroked his long black beard and sighed leisurely. Fellow Taoist Taichu, you are indeed talented and powerful. However, you don't know how powerful the famous preaching sects are. Let's not talk about the fact that the famous preaching sects are orthodox and have the purest preaching chi refinement techniques. Let's talk about how many Dharma treasures they have. Let's talk about one thing. The immortal trap formation. They are not simply pardoned by the immortal trap formation. Instead, they are supported by the immortal trap formation's magic power. This old man knows that you seem to have a technique to deceive the immortal trap formation. However, that is only when you are cultivating in seclusion. What about when you are displaying your cultivation? You will definitely alarm the immortal trap formation and be suppressed. You will suffer the heavenly tribulation and heavenly punishment. How can you be a match for them? Oh? In your eyes, I, Kong Teichu, am unable to shake the immortal trap formation? So I will definitely lose? Jiang Tian frowned slightly. His face had already turned gloomy. Shake the immortal trap formation? What kind of joke is this? Ji Muxin was slightly stunned. He then shook his head and sneered. Kong Teichu, you have the right time, the right place, and the right people. Look at which one you have. The immortal trap formation is not on your side. All the preaching cultivators and even ordinary people do not support you. Now you are surrounded by thousands of soldiers. What chance do you have of winning? Kong Teichu, the world previously put you and me on the same level. They said that with me overseeing Wuxia and you overseeing overseas, Wuxia will be safe. However, in reality, in terms of experience, foresight, and judgment, you are not as good as this old man. This old man has lived for 200 years. He has experienced hundreds of battles, big and small. He has even fought the preaching sects against the Brahmin and the Holy See. The old man represents authority. The old man's words represent victory and defeat. If you insist on fighting with the preaching sects today, you will definitely die on the spot. The old man is only advising you because your cultivation is not easy. Admit defeat and stop the recovery of spiritual aura. He flung his sleeves and stood proudly. Although you killed the descendants of the preaching sects and even the direct disciples. However, the old man still has some connections with the preaching sects and has some face. As long as you lower your head and admit defeat today and sincerely repent, the old man will reluctantly put in a few good words for you. Presumably with the preaching sect's magnanimity, they will also show you mercy outside the law. No, they will kill you. They only need to cripple your cultivation and kill a few of your disciples as a warning to the world. His words were sophistry and arrogant, making Yi Tianren so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood and passed out. Taoist brother Muxian, I originally wanted you to mediate, but you're siding with one side. What do you take our Tianqing sect for? Easy to bully? Yi Tianren stepped forward and angrily rebuked. If I lower my head and admit defeat, you will let me go? However, Jiang Tian waved his hand to stop Yi Tianren. He smiled and said, You will let me go after crippling my cultivation? You will let me go after killing a few of my disciples? I didn't say. Ji Muxian took it for granted. Just as he was about to answer, Jiang Tian raised his hand and gave him a big slap. Slap. This slap came quickly and anxiously. No one expected it. Even Ji Muxian didn't react. He only felt a burning pain on his face. Amidst the crisp sound, everyone's body trembled slightly. They couldn't help but be shocked to the extreme. You've gone too far. Ji Mingchuan Yi Yuhui and the other Kunlun disciples were even more enraged. No matter what, Ji Muxian was the dignified leader of the Kunlun sect and a senior. However, Jiang Tian dared to slap him in public. Under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of people present and hundreds of millions of people in front of the screen, he slapped him. Jiang Taichu's way of doing things was too arrogant and domineering. He was too arrogant and overbearing. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.